Right. Keep going.
So there I am in this canyon working on trying to change my mood that I'm in, change the mindset that I'm in. You know, and there's professionals that would say to me, hey, you got to get meditative, you know, you got to breathe, you got to relax, these types of things. Mute yourself. Press *6, please. Press *6, please.
Me?
There's professionals that anybody making noise.
Okay.
And so repeatedly, you know, my wife being a yogi, I'm a yogi. She's like, you got to work on your breathing. I'm like, it's past my breathing. I'm talking, by the way, for those of you just entering, about my first black cup of coffee that was very strong here just before I got cancer. And I drink my first 6-pack of Corona. It's 9:30 in the morning. We're on this side road. We pulled up this dusty side road. My wife's like, God, I've never seen anything like this. I've been with you for 15 and a half years. I've never seen anything like this. I'm dying. Well, this coffee punches through this 6-pack of Corona like it's nothing. And now, Jeremy, I'm actually thinking to myself, I'm not going to get better. I don't know if you've ever been there before, but there's nothing on the face of the planet like thinking that you're not going to get better, that things are going to get worse, that desperation. You with me?
I'm with you.
And so, by God, I'm not going to quit. I want to find that feeling that I'm used to that Corona can provide for me. And so I started on the next 6-pack of Corona. It's 9:30 in the morning. I haven't drank it in years. And I'm not drunk. I mean, I'm sure I blow in a breathalyzer. There's no doubt I'm drunk. But my kid and I have talked about this many times. Those of you that suffer from fear and anxiety, maybe you use something to get out of it, and you know, some sort of a product to get out of it. Me personally, there's really only 3 things that'll work for me at all for me to get out of a full-fledged, all-out, fear-based environment. Like when I was in sales, when I first got into this industry of sales, long before I got into this industry, but route to route or door-to-door sales, calling on businesses, selling hydraulic components, or going to businesses selling stock, there'd be this fear that would grip me, this immense fear. And it was self-induced. I mean, it was self-induced. I'm reading this message this morning. We often engage in harmful thinking patterns. So there I am, Jeremy, thinking about thinking about my thinking, my self-doubt, my negativity, my fear, my regret that I drank this coffee, and it's building. It's not getting better. It's getting worse. And I don't have any choice. I mean, it's not as though there's someone coming to save me. And one of the things that I've found over the years that is the most difficult thing for you and I to go through is trying to explain to others how you're feeling when you're in the moment of self-doubt, when you're in the moment of this pattern of negativity or fear. There is people will say things like, snap out of it. You know, I remember so well in my 20s and my late teens, my early 30s, being told by people, you know, what's wrong with you? Snap out of it. Come on, get it together. These key words that would trigger me. There's the new word being used out there for this last 5 years or so. Trigger me. And my wife is sitting next to me, who never triggers me, ever. And she's triggering me with her comments. You know, how are we going to get home if you get drunk? I'm like, I look over at her, I'm like, you don't understand. How are we going to get home if I die? you're going to spend the day getting my cadaver out of this canyon, for God's sakes, maybe the next 3 or 4 days. So I get the next Corona down me. I got a 12-pack of Corona in me at 10 o'clock in the morning. Started like at 9:15, 9:20. And the coffee is gone. The black coffee is gone, the effects of it. So I'm like, oh, God, I'm okay. I mean, it was like, I don't know if you've been there, Jeremy, where it's like, oh, thank God there's silence around me again. Yeah, thank God it's over with. You know, like you've been in a battle and everything's quiet now. The war is over. So I start driving up this canyon. I get into this traffic. And the next thing I know, it's like a half an hour in, I'm weaving back and forth through this canyon, trying to keep the 43-foot travel trailer from going out in the other lane, watching the mirrors. I've got a dual 4-door dually Ford, and it sits up real high, and it's too big to be on this road. It's like they built this road coming and going for wagons and a horse and buggy, this type of environment. And next thing I know, I'm grinding my teeth again. And my hand's on the wheel. I'm like, my God, here it is again. And she's like, you've got to be kidding me. I go, what is it with this coffee? I've never been on anything like this in my life. So now I'm having her open these black velvet bottles. And I'm thinking to myself, I only have 12. I don't have a half gallon. I've got 12 black velvet bottles. Where is it? Is it number 6? Is it number 7? Is it number 8? Is it number 9? Is it number 2 or 3 where I'll finally feel relief? And I'm thinking to myself, should I go back to the store? Should I buy more booze? Because I knew if I got drunk, if I could get drunk, that was a feeling I was used to. Because I'm very good at being a drunk. Very good. I'm great at it, like a lot of maybe you or other people that you know. And, you know, drunks can be really repulsive. But a drunk who is somebody like me who is seeking relief and at home on their own, no one's judging them. And I don't judge myself when I was drinking. That was the worst thing I could possibly do is judge myself. So I'm pouring these black velvet bottles down my throat like they're water. And she's just like, I have never seen anybody take in alcohol like this so fast, especially in the morning. I get to the 12th bottle, and by then I'm already starting to feel good. I'm overdoing it on purpose because I need to feel normal again, or what I call normal. I mean, are we ever really normal? And
what is normal?
Yeah, what is normal? So I get the Grants Pass, and it's only been, you know, I've pushed it. It's only been like an hour and 50 minutes, and I'm literally, sweat is pouring down me. I've got my shirt off. It's summertime. I got the window open, but the sound of the wind is driving me nuts. So I shut the window. I open the window. I got the fan on. She's got the radio going. I have to turn the radio off. I have to get the dog from trying to figure out what's wrong with me as she's licking me in the back. Daisy's always worried about me. Everything seemed to be against me, like it does. It piles on you. It piles on me. And we get to a store, and she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I got to get PBR. PBR will help me. I'm gonna go in and get some PBR. So I go in, and I get a 6-pack of PBR, and I'm thinking to myself, well, you better not mix it. You better get Corona. So I get a 24-pack of Corona, and we take the side road out through Grants Pass to Applegate, and there's no traffic, and I'm drinking these Coronas. We get home, and it's like 12:20, 12:30 in the afternoon. And I literally poured myself out of the truck, and she's like, I've never been part of anything like this in my life. I've never seen anything like this. I go, I think it's gone. I think it's gone. And that was my that was my nitro cup of coffee that I drank. And by the way, I only drank 2/3 of the coffee. So those of you that are coffee drinkers, I don't know how you do it. I don't. And how you drink espresso, I don't know. For me, it was like an allergic reaction. So let's talk about marketing for a moment. Because I can tell you, it leads me into what I read a little bit ago. I can tell you all, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I used to oftentimes engage in harmful thinking patterns. Now, when we think harmful, when I say the word harmful, I want to use that word loosely here. But at the same time, I want to use that word because the bottom line is, harmful is what these thinking patterns are that I was using. And to really enunciate or, indicate and explain what I mean by harmful, damaging, detrimental, negative, unfavorable. That's a great synonym for harmful. Unfavorable. I had this unfavorable thinking patterns that I grew up in. They were unfavorable. And I had such self-doubt and negativity and fear. And they acted like poison in my mind. Instead of recognizing that I was the source of this toxicity, I would blame others, like my mom and my dad and my older brother for molesting me. And my mom and dad for not coming to the rescue, not seeing this in their child, as opposed to what they saw was what the byproduct was of my older brother doing this to me wetting the bed at night, not getting a night's sleep because I was afraid of the boogeyman coming down the hallway, cupping my mouth and taking advantage of me again and again and again. And mentally, I was not emotionally well. In a world where I was supposed to be mentally or emotionally well, I was gripped on an ongoing basis by fear. And it's one of the only reasons why I ever sought the help of a psychiatrist, was because I wanted to be able to walk forward in this life, be able to talk to you, and not be in a fear-based environment. I wanted to be in a happiness-based environment. And I've been working on this with a guy in my paper out, like I've mentioned many times on these calls, named Mr. Brown, as a psychiatrist. But for some reason, it was like all my training had gone out the window. In fact, I've come to realize this about 18-year-olds in America, 19-year-olds in America, 20-year-olds in America, 21 and 22-year-olds in America, not only through my own self-reflection, but in watching what happened to Baranaga and Weaver and Qualls and Grammel and Noble, these kids I grew up with, Mark Noble, John Baranaga, Mike Weaver, Wendy Qualls, Julie Gray. Why did Jimmy end up becoming schizophrenic? Why did Weaver end up in an insane asylum at that age? Why didn't it happen to him when he was 16 or 15 or 14? Why does it happen to us when we're 18, 19, 20, 21, 22? Well, it happens to us because our society is set up so now you're a man or you're a woman. You're an adult. And not only are you an adult, but you're in competition with all these other adults. And they got the hang of it and you don't. They're in their 30s, they're in their 40s, they're in their 50s. You start to look back on it and you say, well, I could no longer compare myself to my peers on the playground in the 5th grade. I could no longer compare myself to my peers in the 8th grade or, these juniors in high school or in the 5th grade or whatever grade, because you're no longer in those grades. So you compare yourself to the peers around you. And me personally, having had a bad car wreck in there that put me in a wheelchair for a year, 19 compound fractures on the left side, 5 on the right. I wasn't at college. So I was in this no man's land that existed. And I found myself constantly involved in these thinking patterns of what do I do in this circumstance? What do I do in this situation? And what I would do constantly was I would retreat. Retreat felt comfortable. Crawl back into bed, sit in front of the TV. Of all things on the face of the planet, those of you who remember, MTV had just come out in the early 80s. And I would veg out in front of MTV, you know, and then I would hear things like, you know, Uberbacher or Kurt Bryan, you know, these guys that had gotten their associate degree early. David Graham got his associate degree on time. And I started to feel bad. I'm like, geez, dude, you know, you're not doing this stuff. They're doing this stuff. You're not doing this stuff. And I'm working with a psychiatrist full-time at the time and my pastor full-time at the time. And one day my pastor got up and he just came over and he sat down and he wrapped his arms around me and said, listen to me, you've got to go at your own pace into adulthood. And I remember the silence, like the silence we're just hearing just now. Me not talking, you not talking, no noise. And I remember the ease that came over to me, the comfort that came over me, this blanket of comfort. Go at your own pace. This is one of the things that I believe makes me one of the better coaches I've ever met in my entire life. Was I had one of the greatest coaches I've ever met in my entire life, if not the best coach I ever met in my entire life, that had this set of words that he gifted me that set me at ease. Like I tell people in yoga, don't look around the room and compare it to others when we go into a proud warrior pose or a downward dog pose or any pose for that matter. If you can't hold it as long, or maybe you can't bend as well, go at your own pace. Don't tear any muscles. Don't injure yourself trying to do something that others are doing. Do what you're doing, and eventually what you'll do is you'll talk, if you do it right, you'll talk the muscle into relaxing. Might take 10 visits, it might take 20 visits, it might take 30 visits, it might take 100 visits. It doesn't matter. I mean, it really is about the journey, not about the destination. And you've got to nurture yourself. Getting ready for this meeting this morning, I was looking at this Mulligan Brothers on Instagram, and it's got some very inspirational stuff on it. And it talked about self-care being one of the top 7 things that you could do. You know, and inevitably you hear me on these calls talk about self-care. I mean, some of you would love to hear me talk about loans and how to land loans. You know, I can tell you all, you can't land a loan if you're not grooming yourself, if you're not taking care of your teeth and combing your hair and getting the sleep out of your eyes, getting the dirt out of your fingernails and the toe jam out of your toenails and clipping your nails. Clipping your nails. I mean, I remember being around Mike Weaver and Timmy Weaver and Mickey Weaver and Jim Weaver the dad and Kay Weaver, and their self-care was minimal at best. Mike always smelled like armpits and didn't shower, and his toenails were long. Timmy's toenails were long. I remember them being broken and them snagging on their socks, and they'd make the comment, and I'd look at them and I'd think to myself, for God's sakes, how about a fingernail clipper? It's one of the things that my dad would do with us kids, just like I did with my own children when they were little boys, is we would have fingernail day, fingernail morning, fingernail afternoon, fingernail evening, whatever. They'd get out of the tub, the fingernails and the toenails were soft. I'd take them out on the front porch or the back porch, depending on whether it was raining or not. Have them drape their feet over the side of the wall, the step, and cut their toenails, work on their self-care. No one ever taught me how to care for myself. And quite honestly, I think that it's something that if you're doing this now at my age, self-care, you all of a sudden start to take care of yourself. You could appear this new word, narcissistic. I hear this word all the time. Everywhere I look, I see these women and these men going back and forth with their exes, talking about narcissism. He's such a narcissist. She's such a narcissist. I could tell you all, we're very narcissistic when we're little. And at the end of the day, I started to realize throughout the books I was reading that we're just adult children. That's all we are. So vanity and self-love and self-admiration and self-adulation and self-absorption, self-obsession, conceit, self-conceit, egotism. There's times where we've got to enter into these realms in order to take care of ourselves, nurture ourselves, because we are in survival mode from moment to moment to moment. I see friends around me right now. It's happening just right and left and right and left. Lance Griffin and his wife are retiring. You all have heard me use that Wilsonville Chevron, Lance's Superior Auto in week 1. And Lance is getting ready to retire. They're done. It's over. And as Rob Hudson started to retire with Kathy Hudson, and as my ex-wife and her husband John started to retire, these people have retired in this last 4, 5, 6 months. And what I see them doing is having this moment of awe. Awe. Well, I know why my wife is having this moment of awe. Is because she hated her career every single solitary day at Lone Depot in Ashland, Oregon as the manager. Hated her career. Hated working. Her husband, John, hated working. Lance Griffin and my buddy, my best friend, Lance Griffin, hates to work. Meg hates to work. They hate it. Rob Hudson hated to work at Albertsons and then eventually Safeway Bakery for 38 years. He hated it. Kathy Hudson hated working for the home builder she worked for. With me, what I found with myself at 38, 40, and 44 was I retired in those years because I hated working. But what I realized was I was working as hard, if not harder, during my retirement at golfing and at fly fishing. And I found that this was actually easy by comparison. This is easy for me to reflect back on what it was like to be you, each of you. Because I can tell you right now, I've been you. I've been you every single solitary morning since about 1983. Where I only missed maybe, gross total 2 years between now and then, all those years. Go back 40 years, 41, 42 years, where I wasn't doing what I am this morning, and that is getting prepared for the day. Getting prepared for the day. A day that was going to be challenging in the event that I didn't have my act together. A day that was going to be challenging in the event that I didn't have my thoughts together, my thinking patterns together. If I were controlled by self-doubt, if I were controlled by negativity, if I were controlled by fear or regret, a terrible word, a word I refuse to be part of. I refuse to harbor regrets, feel apologetic about something, feel remorseful about something, feel repentant about something. Repent, remorse, sorrow. No way in hell do I allow myself regrets. And I don't flog myself in the event that I do something wrong when I'm with you or other people. I don't respond that way. It's taken me years and years and years, countless situations and countless crossroads where I come up against myself and found myself making a decision. How do I respond right now? How do I respond right now? And I oftentimes would respond from fear or negativity or regret. I mean, Jeremy and I were talking earlier. Some of you are trying to figure out, what the hell is he rambling about? I don't understand what he's talking about with this corona. And I tried to articulate within reason as I was talking or telling this story about the fact that I'd been gripped by this cup of coffee that I drank, this nitro coffee from Dutch Brothers. You know, so often, so many times, my company was large enough, or my companies, plural, were large enough that somebody like Stacy would say to me, you know, is everything okay? It's like, how can you explain to someone what's going on when you're in the middle of circumstances or situations that you don't understand yourself? So many times in my lifetime, I've tried to find words to elaborate on what I was experiencing at the time I was experiencing it, because so often over the years, I've had an audience around me, more often than not, all day, every day. And I felt a sense of responsibility. It's like, well, you know, Matt's been with me for 6 years, or, you know, Tad's been with me for 14 years, or Stacy's been with me almost 30 years, or Julie, my wife, before Julie and I got a divorce and I married Jane, you know, I've got to explain myself, or I've got to explain myself to Travis or Grant. It was easier for me, by the way, to explain myself to my children than it was to explain myself to my adults. Daddy's not doing well. Oh, Daddy, I'll give you a hug. No. Daddy's not looking for a hug right now from you. Daddy's not that type of dad. Dad's not going to be that dad or that mom that leeches off of or vampires off of his children. So many of us do. So many of us were vampired by our own parents, our own relatives. And I refuse to do that to my children. It's like, Daddy's got to get his head on straight. So if you don't mind right now, Daddy doesn't want to talk in the car. Daddy's going to turn on Alanis Morissette, or Daddy's going to turn on Pearl Jam, or Daddy's going to turn on the Cars, or, you know, Daddy's going to turn on, you know, who knows what, the Beatles, and just go into a zone here for a little bit. No wonder my children are so into music, because so many times they saw me lose myself, like an Eminem song in the movie 8 Mile, you know, lose myself. So I didn't throw up Mom's spaghetti, like the song by Eminem. This great set of lyrics, an amazing set of lyrics. These lyrics over time, from Rush to Led Zeppelin to Eminem, or to rap artists like Diddy or whoever, where I'd hear this set of lyrics and I'm like, God, that pertains to me. Right now I got to buckle down. Right now I got to hang tough, hang in there. Right now I got to endure. And so many times I look out in the field and I look at your emails and I think to myself, I'm like, well, this person is going through this right now, undergoing, living through, experiencing, encountering, meeting themselves. They're enduring. And it's a maddening environment. It is. It's a maddening environment building endurance. Last night I stepped up my game. I'm getting ready right now to run a marathon, and I stepped up my game. I said, that's it. That's it. You've been doing an amazing job getting ready for this, but you're coming close now to that day when you're going to go out and you're going to suffer a little over 26 miles. And you got to step it up. You're done enduring. You're done going through. You're done living through. You're done experiencing. What you're going to do is you're going to have endurance, toleration, fortitude, forbearance, patience. And it's going to be based off the work you do today. If you don't do the work today, then you're going to suffer tomorrow. Tomorrow being here in 2.5 months when I run this marathon. Something I never thought I would ever do again in my entire life, ever. I'll be 63 and a half years old. I'll run this marathon, and I'm going to do it at my pace. I keep writing the note. I found myself the other day doing something. Some of you have heard me say this, that in the olden days when I was really trying to break out of these negative mindsets and these patterns that were harmful, that were abusive for me, that were negative, fear-based, as I was trying to break out, that what I would do is I would put Post-it notes everywhere. 3M had just brought Post-it notes out. You could only get one size of Post-it note. Now you can get so many sides of Post-it notes, it's unreal. You could only get one color of Post-it notes. Now you can get all sorts of color. Hell, you can get the rainbow of Post-it notes. And I have Post-it notes on my steering wheel, Post-it notes on my mirror, Post-it notes on my hunting and fishing gear. And I may not hunt or fish for 6 months, but when I opened up the zipper on that shotgun or rifle, there was that Post-it note, that reminder. Say this to yourself 25 times. The mirror every morning, say this to yourself 25 times. The toilet, when I would sit down and look at the wall, say this to yourself 25 times. And what I knew I was doing was brainwashing myself, breaking the chains that bound me. John Bradshaw, Carolyn Mace, why people don't heal and how they can. And I wanted to heal. I wanted to heal because I found myself, for whatever reason, involved in an environment where I had people around me called employees. And I was no good to them oftentimes. Oftentimes, more often than not. And that was not a good thing as a leader. And I wanted to be a leader you could depend on. But eventually what I really found was I wanted to be a leader I could depend on. Hell, I wanted to be able to depend on myself. It wasn't until Johanna, an ex-meth addict, was driving along Mount Hood Freeway on the way over to Bend or on the way home from Bend, Oregon, and there we are building homes. We're 200 homes in. I mean, I'm managing money coming in from angles as unimaginable, from my hotel chain that I bought into, from restaurants, a couple bars I've owned, apartment complexes, 2 high-rises. We're building 75 homes at the time. My mortgage company's going through the roof. My telemarketing company's going through the roof. And he makes a comment, just this fleeting comment, this passive comment. We are the problem, Brett. He looks right at me. He's like, Brett, we are the problem. We are the solution to the problem, and therein lies the problem. And I remember it was like I'd heard, Marcus Aurelius come up with something that was like, stop the car, get out, and put it on a sign and show everybody on the freeway what Joe has just said. eventually I would bastardize it or plagiarize it by pirating it and making it my own. I am the problem. I am the solution to the problem, and therein lies the problem. And so often we create our own problems, or we wake up and we just carry this baggage around with us like it's a responsibility, like a turtle with a shell, or someone in the armed services with a backpack, or a child with a day pack. Where's my day pack? Where's my day pack? I got to put my day pack on. Yeah, I got to put my backpack on. The turtle doesn't get a chance. He or she is in her shell. And I found myself in this environment where it's like, you got to go through a metamorphosis. You've got to go through a metamorphosis. And I started to always love reverse engineering. I've kind of got an engineering mindset. And I started to look up. I'm really into words. I started to realize that metamorphoses are not fun. A lizard going through a metamorphosis, it's not a friendly environment watching a lizard go through a metamorphosis, or a snake going through a metamorphosis where they go from one size to another. You know, so often I see these metamorphoses around me. And I reflect back on what it was like for me to go through this transfigure, or this conversion, or this transformality, or transmute, or to change, to basic the word out to the point where everyone can understand it, to change. And the only way that I could change is I had to try, and I had to fail. I had to try and I had to fail. I had to try and I had to fail. I had to try and I had to fail. You can't, I'll let you all in a little secret. You can't try to do something. It's not possible to try and do something. You either do it or you don't. I'm going to say it again, because it's hard to comprehend when you first hear it for the first time. You can't try to do something. You either do it or you don't. It's the reason why so many of us come up to the tip of things and don't do them, is because we know at the end of the day that there's a chance, a high likelihood, it's not going to work out. And I can tell you, this is what I find every day when I break it up, get on the phone with you one-on-one, and I start talking about marketing, and it's like, you haven't even tried. And you're telling me it won't work. Like a guy over the weekend reached out to me and goes, you're such a liar. I've seen your ad repeatedly now in Detroit for over 9 months, and there's no way in hell you did this type of volume. You're sick. I'm reading it here. You're sick. You're mentally ill. You live in delusions of grandeur. And he left his phone number. I called him up. His name is Ike. I said, Ike, this is Brett Martin. I had to leave a message. Naturally, he's the type that what? Screens calls, right? Hides from the world. Probably created a world where he's pissed enough people off, and he's hiding from his debt collectors, his bill collectors, that he's created this life for himself where I had created for myself at one time that is fear-based, negativity-based, regret-based. And he called me back, and he goes, I missed a call from this number. I go, Ike, it's Brett. He's like, Brett? He's questioning me like, Brett? I go, yeah, Brett. I'm the guy. The guy that you said I couldn't do what I said I did. He's like, why are you calling me? I go, because I'd love to talk to you about your mindset. Because I have absolutely no doubt in my mind it's your mindset that's keeping you from being what you want to be in life, or where you want to be in life. He's like, I can't believe you called me. He goes, that's the difference. That's what I told him. I go, that's the difference between me and everyone I went up against was I called the business owner back. In the mortgage industry, I called the homeowner back. Tufan didn't call the homeowner back at first when I taught him. Lois Mulrooney didn't call the homeowner back when I first started dealing with her. Tim Walter didn't call the homeowner back when I first started dealing with him. Dan Repetto, Tom Durrett, Joe Bokovats. These are real people. You could look up Tufan, Fairway Mortgage. He used to run my company. Ran it right underneath me as a CEO for 7 years. Tens of thousands of people he was in charge of. This kid, emotionally, when he came to me out of Colorado College, thought he was all that and a bag of chips on the swim team, on the ski team. Little Asian kid, 5'7", still wet underneath the ears, 5'6". Coming to me for answers over and over again. Hell, I don't have the answers half the time. Other than to say to you, this is what I did. And the reason I did this was because this is what I learned in this book by Vanderbilt or Morgan or Rothschild or Carnegie or Bob Proctor or Tony Robbins. These little injections that I could input. And oftentimes I couldn't input them until you got or he got to that point where now's the time to mention this. Because I always had this mindset that was like this: if this, then that. If this, then that. I wrote a tremendous screenplay that was initially titled If This, Then That in 2008. Took me over a year to complete. And I can remember developing these characters that were involved in this world. If this, then that. If I do this, then that will happen. You know that. You all know that if you walk out in front of a bus going by at 70 miles an hour, you're going to get hit. And there's a really good chance you're going to die. You know how predictable the world is. In fact, oftentimes when my kids were little, I would say to them, my kids would say to me, tell me about God. I'd say, the only thing I can tell you about God is constant. God's not like man where they change rules like, drinking age or now you can smoke marijuana or this is legal now or this is not legal now due to the new administration from a congressional level or senatorial level or a presidential level. God's not like man where things change. God's constant. I'm not here to tell you all about God or speak to you all about God and try and tell you anything than how I comprehend God is this, that if you and I get up on the Empire State Building and we go over the top of the wire fence and we jump off without a parachute or anything else, you're going to meet the consistency of God. You're going to die. I'm going to die. Professionals will tell you and I that we will die on the way down. Not something I want to be part of. And over again, I remember thinking to myself that there's these constants in the world, like the sun comes up and the sun goes down. And I started to say these things to myself, like there's never been 2 days in a row. I've never heard anyone in my life ever say that. I've never heard anyone in my life, when I started saying this to myself in my late 20s, early 30s, I'd write these notes like I still do, and I would say, there's never been 2 nights in a row. There's never been 2 days in a row, which means I can leave behind yesterday. It's a new day today, and I can try again. And I can tell you all, there were days when I would wake up and I would be literally, by the time I got in the kitchen or by the time I got into the bathroom, I was already feeling defeat. I already felt like I've been beaten, conquered. I already felt defeated, beaten. And I would have to go back to the drawing board. I would literally go back to the drawing board. I would go back and I would get back in bed. And it's like, all right, what are you going to say to yourself when your feet hit the ground? What are you going to say to yourself when your feet hit the ground? I mean, I saw something here about 3 years ago. It really was trending, and it was Denzel Washington. And there he was at that college in the podium. And he's talking to all of those kids. And of all things on the face of the planet, it's one of those 100-degree days when whatever idiot designed it, they're all in black robes with a black hat on, wondering why these kids pass out in the crowd. I always get such a kick out of it. There they are underneath their garments. They've got their clothing on top of it. You know, my God, the Donner family could have lived in this throughout the winter without freezing to death, this outfit that Denzel Washington is in as he's speaking from the pulpit in front of these collegiate students that are getting ready to graduate. And he's talking about things like how we're working harder and not getting more done, about how we're running in place and not getting anywhere. You know, and over again, he was bringing up one thing after another that I could utilize in my life for myself. I mean, none of this stuff that I talked to you about I haven't done before. Yeah, I remember what it was like. In fact, I'm working with Caleb right now. I don't know if you're on the phone, Caleb. If you are, if you can speak up, that'd be great. I don't know if you're on the phone right now. Caleb, are you in the office? Are you speaking up? Are you in your hotel? Are you speaking up? And we're talking about going out to banks this week. And I'm thinking about what it was like for me going into banks for the first time, like you ladies and gentlemen. What was it like? Well, first off, I can tell you that I lived in a self-fulfilling prophecy because in my mind, I already knew what they were going to say to me. I already knew what they were going to say to me. I already had doubt. I would say probably 40% of me thought they were going to tell me no. And so I had this mindset of, how can I get around them telling me no? How can I get around them telling me no? And one of the things I've always been an advocate of is brevity. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is with salespeople in general, but for some reason, salespeople in general have a tendency to speak for too long when they're in their sales mode. They're on the phone. I've found that more often than not, what they become is information providers. If I could just provide enough information. So there I am getting ready to go into these banks, saying to myself, what does she want to hear? What does he want to hear? What they really want to hear out of me is that I can help them. I can add value to their lives. And so that's what I went in there for, was to say to them, I can add value to their lives. It's no different than myself. I got on this call this morning. I said to myself, what do you want out of me, each of you? Well, at the end of the day, when we all get down to it, if we're having a glass of wine, a glass of beer, a glass of orange juice, an apple juice, a water, and we really started to break this down from a philosophical standpoint, the bottom line is you're here for something. You need something. You want something out of this. I'm here as a leader to help add value to your life. In a world, by the way, where everywhere I look, no matter where I look, if I want someone to help me add value to my life, I got to pay money. And it just pisses me off. that I got some guy who's saying, you could be like me, but you got to pay me $5,000. You could be like me, but you got to pay me $199. How do I know that he's not making money from that environment? I mean, my guy's only 31. He's only 43. Did he do what everyone else does, where he rented the Ferrari, rented the yacht, rented the condominium in Miami on the 50th floor? Sure he did. This is all part of the shtick right now. Everywhere we look, we're starting to debunk these people. And at the end of the day, we're finding, this is what I'm finding, is everything I found back in my 20s and my 30s and my 40s and my 50s, and that is that there are very, 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 very few influencers that have been to the rodeo, seen the clown show, endured, and endurance showed up, and now they can add value to my life. That's why there's only one Joe Rogan. There's only one Michael Jordan. You know, you look around, there are thousands of people offering you, a better website, search engine optimization, AI tools, thousands of them. Reminds me of a story told by an immigrant in the 1700s, early 1800s. He gets to America. He arrives, got a little over $300 in his pocket. He's going to get land. By the time he got up the boardwalk and got, a third of the way through, so many people had said to him, whoa, where are you going? Stop, come here, buy my fruit. Stay in this hotel. Hey, buy these hookahs. You can come upstairs with my ladies. My ladies are the best. What are you doing? Stop. Grab some cigars here. You're going to need cigars where you're going. And they just kept hitting him one after another. He found himself in a brothel. His money was gone. And he's reflecting back in his journal about his goals on the way over to America. What happened? And now he found himself in the same environment that so many immigrants found themselves in back then when they came to America in the 1700s and the 1800s, where now he had to find a job. But it was hard to find a job because so many others were trying to find a job also. So he found himself in the back alleys, in the dregs of society, digging through garbages, digging through the outside area of restaurants to live off rinds and live off of, pork fat and leftover meals. And he felt lucky if he could find a muffin or something that had been uneaten. So many times in my lifetime in those early years, I found myself in that type of environment where I felt like that man, where I felt like I'd set out like Jack in the story Jack and the Beanstalk, or so many immigrants with the greatest of intentions and then got over here and got caught up in drink, got caught up in gambling, got caught up in whoring around, or got sidetracked on the way to my goal. Think about writing that letter to your wife. Think about writing that letter to your husband. Think about writing that letter to yourself. Hey, I'm sorry, but you're not going to get what you wanted, because my self-discipline, I had no force field built. I had no boundaries. And I bought into this house of ill repute or this idea or that idea. So often when I talk to you, ladies and gentlemen, one-on-one, we start to break it down. We look at it and it's like, you haven't done anything. You're getting ready to do something, but you haven't done anything. Email after email after email after email after email from your national sales managers where you send it over to me and the guy has a question. A lady has a question. This morning I got a question, I think it was from Marcus or from Milton. And this guy was just rambling on and on and on about how he has a loan. He has a loan. It's like, why even bother writing this all down? I have a loan ready to submit, except he completed my application a week ago, and he did not qualify for a regular business loan. I have the file ready. My client completed it in my application a few days ago, and he doesn't meet the guidelines for business credit card term loans. Can I use the original company with my logo on the application that the customer completed on the form a week ago on my behalf? It's not on Mom and Pop's application. Well, sure, we need Mom and Pop's application. I didn't train you all in class. I didn't say to you, hey, everyone, use whatever application you want. Hey, everyone, send us anything you want. We don't really give a shit. It doesn't matter to us. You can just send us anything. Send a note from their mother. We don't care. We have a system. System requires 6-month bank statements, and the application be filled out and signed and dated to the best of their ability. How many times do you hear me say that on week 1? Day in and day out. This is a question that should have never been asked. It should have never been asked. We're in an environment constantly where we're paralyzed via our analyzation. Paralysis via analysis. We think things through, and we overthink things. You know what? For me personally, one of the things that saved my life is that I'm a doer. I don't know where the hell it came from, but I'm a doer. Someone who's an executor. Someone who's an agent or operative or operator. An accomplisher. I love accomplishments. I can't stand it when I set out to do something and I can't accomplish something. I don't know if Sean's on the phone right now from Florida, our president, but I told Sean yesterday that I broke through. Good morning, brother.
Hey, good morning.
And you heard me via email and text tell you how excited I was. I found this missing link to YouTube, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's been very frustrating for me, has it not?
It's been very frustrating. Not easy to
Yeah,
solve.
it's an understatement. You're laughing, in fact. But what did you do? What did you do in 5 minutes? You sent it back, and you had made it so much better, it was unimaginable. Agreed?
Yeah.
In no time, he did what took me months. I mean, folks, I didn't work on this for 1 minute a day. Every time I had spare time, just like Craigslist, took me 7.5 months, I worked on this portion of YouTube. And Sean was able to do it in seconds, if not minutes. My big problem I had was, like I told Sean at the beginning of last week and midweek last week, is I can't even imagine Sean is 50, I'm 63 years old. Sean is somebody who could take 25 words to explain something that takes me 1,000 words to explain something. And what did I say to you midweek, Sean? I don't know how to explain it to you because I'm not sure what I want. You remember me telling you that?
Yeah.
Imagine, folks, think about that for a moment. I don't know how to explain it to you because I don't know what I want. But what I didn't elaborate was that there's this feeling I have that tells me that if I can find whatever it is that's missing, I will feel better, content. And so I did the same thing you and I all did when we were 2 years old, 1.5 years. And our mother and father had put us in our crib. Our aunt, uncle, our grandmother, our grandfather, our legal guardian had put us in a crib. What did we do? We stood up. We started rattling the bars. We don't know why we're rattling the bars. And then we just want out. What are we going to do once we get out? Well, watch a child, watch an infant, watch a toddler when they get out. There's this sense of contentment. But over and over and over again, that child, as they turn into a young adult and adult, will go through this again and again and again. Discomfort. Discomfort. Rattle the cage. Rattle those bars on the crib. And then they find comfort again. And then discomfort. And they rattle the cage, and they rattle the cage, and they rattle the cage. Let me out, let me out, let me out, symbolically. And then they get out. And we find ourselves in a cage again and again. You know, I see my friends retiring around me, and I see them saying them to me in their words, but not really. I'm so glad to be out of the cage. Like, yeah, I've been out of the cage before. I've retired before at 38, 40, and 44. And I can tell you right now, it ain't cut out to be what you think it is. You will find yourself in a cage again. I got a call out of my ex-wife on Saturday midday. And we were talking, and she's like, exactly what you said happened to you is happening to me. I actually liked being a loan officer better than I do being retired. And I said, see, Julie, I told you be careful what you wish for. It's like, how am I going to manage this? I said, man, you know, some people, they have to go back to part-time, 3/4 time. She's like, it's on my mind right now. I'm wondering if my company will take me back. I go, well, there's some company that'll take you back. It's not as though the world closed in behind you. That black hole is gone for good. You can always go find another. It's like, I think I'm going to need you going forward. I'm like, it's okay. You can give me a yell. And then all of a sudden, the phone gets taken over, and it's John. And John makes the comment. He goes, are you hiring? He goes, I go, you know I'm hiring, John. He goes, I always wanted to do what you're doing. So funny, I'm talking to Lance Griffin last week. We're talking at length, and he says to me, I'm scared that going up to Banff, Canada, and coming back after a vacation, that I'm going to miss work. He goes, I've heard you say this to me over and over and over again in the last 25, 30 years since you retired at 38, and we were all looking at you like, how did he do it? You know, how did he do it? Well, it'd be more important, like I told him, why I did it. I did it because I felt like I was in a cage. And I couldn't get out of the cage, and I wanted out of the cage. Freedom. William Wallace. Mel Gibson. An amazing movie, Braveheart. Freedom. Freedom. Freedom to be in a situation where I can say to myself, I'm going to work on this today, but I'm not going to let it drive me insane. That's one thing I can tell you, Sean, that you never heard me say was, I'm so frustrated, I'm going to quit. Not once did I ever tell you I was so frustrated I was going to quit, did I, Sean? Not once.
Nope.
Never did I indicate to you that I was going to quit, did I?
No.
What I kept saying to myself in my mind is, go at your own pace, take your time, you'll find the answers. Now, that's a great Post-it note. And I can tell you those Post-it notes at one time were life-saving events for me. You know, I can't begin to tell you how many of you on this call right now are angry at me. Hold on a minute. I'm going to say it again. I can't believe how many of you on this call right now are angry at me. I get bitched out. I get cussed out. I get told by you that I'm a liar, a large portion of you, day in and day out. And yet you come back. I would never call you a liar. I would never tell you that this didn't work and you didn't accomplish this and this can't be done and still stay on your platform. I would never do that and still stay on your platform. Look up the word grace and understand that the only reason you're still here is because of my grace. You've abused me that bad. My poise, my dexterity, my deftness, my fluid of movement, my politeness, my courtesy allows you to continue to abuse the living shit out of me. Treat me like Jesus Christ. Nail me to the cross. Throw things at me. Wrap me in thorns. Cuss at me. Curse at me. Go ahead. I don't care. It doesn't matter. I can tell you right now, I've had more people carve themselves out against me than you could possibly imagine. You can't fathom it. Not 100 people, not 1,000 people, not 10,000 people, but hundreds of thousands of people. I don't even hear it anymore, other than to use it as an example in a meeting like this. The abuse I take on a daily basis is, it would literally cripple the bulk of most of you. Believe me, fundamentally, you have to endure it for years and years and years and years and years, and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of times, if not 1,000,000 times or more, before what? Before you have the endurance. The endurance to be able to endure it and tolerate it. Have the patience, the resignation, the stoicism, the stamina to endure. I told Sean about this character in the yoga world, in the spiritual world. Many of you see this elephant, Ganesha, this elephant-shaped item, this elephant-headed god who is known as the remover of obstacles. And when I got in the yoga world, it was everywhere. Everyone had these on their desk. They had them on their shirt. I'm thinking to myself, what is this character that looks like an elephant, got a crown on his head or her head? What is this character all about? And like I said last week, there I was one Sunday morning, all the light coming in through the etched glass, the stained glass. We're in an ashram in Portland. Sunday morning, Jane and I, we're quietly all, there's like 50, 60, 70 of us packed into a room. It's moist. A couple classes have gone back to back, so there's a little condensation running down the glass. You know, it's warm. It's a summer morning. And there we are in these postures, each of us in our own way, dealing with what's going on in our lives, stretching it out, relaxing, meditating, trying to work into this. And this young lady, Natasha, is telling this story about this character, Ganesh, or Ganesha, and how he would come into villages. She uses the acronym HE, versus she, pronoun, he versus she. And she says he would come into these villages, and most of the men hated him. The women loved him. And so what they would do is they would throw things at him. Forks, knives, shingles, plates, bricks, rocks, anything they had that they could throw at him. Innuendos, negative words, negative connotation. And he would grab them. That's why he had all these legs and all these arms. And he would grab them and he'd place them on himself. Because he realized what it would do at the end of the day is strengthen him. Yeah, I'm watching a story this morning about a little boy. Listen to this.
Why did God give you cancer?
It's why did God give you cancer? Listen to this for a moment. Just listen to this. Why did God give you cancer?
God is in control.
Give me a second here. Let me tee this up.
Why did God give you cancer? Not now. God is in control.
Because he chose me.
Why did God give you cancer? This guy's interviewing this kid, 6, 7 years old, and he says, because the kid says, because he chose me. Listen to this.
Because I'm a special boy.
And the guy says, and why did you choose me? And the boy says, because I'm a special boy. Listen to this.
What? Hard. But you've been through so much pain.
But you've been through so much pain. This man says, this grown man says, this bald-headed little boy in the hospital with cancer.
Why did God say yes to that?
Why did God say yes to that?
He chose me to do it.
And are you mad at God?
Are you mad at God? You got the audacity to ask this little boy, are you mad at God? And the little boy shakes his head. Here's what he says. No.
Because I'm glad that he chose me when I was Maddie and Emma.
I'm glad that he chose me and not my friend Maddie. I'm glad he chose me and not my friend Maddie. And the guy goes on to ask why. Here we go.
Because then they're going to have to go through this.
Because then they're going to have to go through this, as opposed to him. And the guy goes on to say, because you don't want them to suffer?
Why do you still smile?
Why do you still smile?
But God,
Even though I have pain and stuff, God still makes me happy, the boy says.
I don't know.
And I don't want to be sad or mad at God. I can tell you all something. This is the God's honest truth. This is as I'm sitting here right now in my boxers and my hooded sweatshirt from Carhartt. I can tell all of you. I remember literally saying to God, give me my dad's pain. Give me my mom's pain. Relieve them of their pain. Give me my brother's pain. Give me their problems. I remember being 8 and 9 and 10 and coming home with cash in my paper route and helping my dad with his issues because my dad had a problem, and his problem was that he had been raised in a family by a single woman. His dad had died when he was 5 in a brutal car wreck. And he didn't have that grit as an adult, that stick-to-itiveness. And he would cop out early and he would drink. And he would gamble. And he would whore around, as hard as it is for me to admit. And he would alienate the family and be gone. And my mom would go hide in the room. And she would cry, smoke cigarettes, and chain smoke, and say, we're not going to make it. And as sick as it is, if you've ever heard about Oedipus Rex and Shakespeare, as sick as it was and is, she married herself to me. Because out of the family, I was the one that was the light among the darkness. I knew. And I would sit in her lap and I would comfort her. Not in a sensual way, not in a sexual way, by any means. But what she was doing was sticking her fangs in me and finding relief. What a sick thing to do to a child. But as a child, I took on the role because just like this kid with cancer, I said to myself, I can handle this. But to be honest with all of you, I couldn't handle it. But I could. For whatever reason, somewhere around 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, I lost that Superman feeling. I lost my cape. Kryptonite? I don't know what it was. And from a societal standpoint, what the world was saying to me is, you're no longer part of the family model. You got to be on your own. It's not like the farms in the 1800s, early 1900s, where mom and dad, aunts, uncles, grandmas, grandpas lived on the same farm or in the immediate surrounding areas. It was at a time in American history in the early 80s to mid-80s where you all had to get your own box and be on your own and live in your box. It was a lonely place for me. And I found it difficult for me to help my dad, difficult for me to help my mom, difficult for me to help my older brother Alan, even though he'd molested me growing up, difficult for me to help Christopher, my little brother. So what I did was I had to make changes in how I help these people. And one of the ways that I found myself helping them, interestingly enough, was I started giving them money. That's the only way I could truly help them, was to give them money. Because at the end of the day, that's where they were really having problems, was that the quality of their life, or the lack of quality in their life had to do with the fact that they did not have food. They did not have water and shelter on a regular basis. They did not have clean clothes on a regular basis. Hell, they didn't have clothes on a regular basis. New clothes. They wore the same clothes. And over and over and over and over and over again, I found myself providing them money and helping them. Never in my wildest dreams did I think for one moment that they would be angry at me, but in their own way, each and every one of them, whether it was the Luck family or the Griffin family in the early years or the Weaver family or my own family, as I would lend this money to them without interest, without expectations of getting it back, give this money away, what I found with these people is that guilt would show up and shame would show up. And then what they would do is they would become retaliatory. And of all things on the face of the planet, they would actually bite the hand that fed them. Still doing it to this day. Every single day. That's what I aim to do, is help people that are in trouble. You, the business owner, help you help the business owner. In a world where so many of these business owners were just like my dad and my aunt and my uncle and Griffin in his early years and Bauckham in his early years as a roofer. I got a buddy of mine who's very, very, very successful. Him and I walked very similar lives growing up together. He's a world champion Harley Davidson rider in the 1/4 and the half mile. A phenomenal guy, just a phenomenal guy to be around. His name is Steve Dorn, D-O-R-N, Dorn Racing. You can look him up, Dorn Racing, a world record holder. And Steve and I were talking. He had a very, very, very bad wreck about 15 years ago. Got to the end of the ramp, into the runway, and had lost his brakes at 300 miles an hour. Compound fractures all over his body. I got a phone call from a friend. Steve needs you. You've been here before. Technology is different now than it was when I had my car wreck in 1982. But at the end of the day, mindsets are not different. And he owned a gigantic company that erected steel buildings. and David Backham worked for him, and Dave and him were there, and Steve said, what kind of advice can you give me? And I said, you're going to have to work as hard at this as you did at building your company if you're going to want to get back on your feet. And every once in a while I get a phone call from him. Inject a little bit more to positive energy. You can do this, dude. Because he got the same place I did where we got to, we all do, where we get involved in self-doubt. Nothing on the face of the planet is worse than self-doubt. Like I was talking to Jeremy at the beginning of this call about a cup of coffee, something as simple as a cup of coffee that sent me over the edge. Hesitancy, self-doubt, a feeling of diffidence and indecision about doing something, unassertiveness. So often I see that unassertiveness, that self-doubt, that timidity, that diffidence about self-promotion out there in the field for these people in this industry. Not only with my company, but other companies, because people hire me on a fee basis to help them get over the hump because they know that I've done this volume and they want to know how to do this volume. I could tell all of you this, that saying exists for a reason about preparation. That if you don't prepare, you're preparing to fail. And I know I'm paraphrasing.
An ounce of preparation is worth a pound of maintenance.
Say it again.
An ounce of preparation is worth a pound of maintenance.
And I can tell you, brother, what I find with people is I get into their brains, I start to find about their own personal habits. It's like, you're not even prepared. You're not prepared for this. But more importantly, the big picture is you're not prepared for success. How can you have success if you're not prepared for success? So you go to my website I introduced you to when we first met one another in week 1 in 7keys-to-success.com. A, set a goal. Well, you know what? Each of you set a goal to get on this call, and you did. Key number 2, make a plan on how to reach your goal. You made a plan on how to get on this call. Key number 3, ask yourself a question. Do you believe in the plan? You did, or you wouldn't have gone on this call. Key number 4, put the plan in action. You did, or you wouldn't be on this call. You cannot go through life without these 7 keys. You did it making breakfast this morning, making coffee this morning, taking a dump this morning or a pee. You did it showering. You did it shaving. Every one of those required that you set a goal, make a plan on how to reach the goal, ask yourself a question, how do I, or do I believe in the plan? And then key number 4, you put the plan in action, you put the toast in the toaster, you put the coffee in the microwave, you turn the teapot on, you fed the dog, you didn't deviate from the plan, you're on this call, and if you did deviate, then you put your plan right back in action and got on the call anyway. Didn't let anything get in your way. And then last but not least, the money key, which I believe is the most important key. But if you're full of shame, if you're full of guilt, or if you discount this and you say, well, this isn't really the goal, Brett. Come on, Brett. The goal is for me to fund a loan and make money. Well, folks, I told you many times, those of you that remember, I said over the last month or two on these calls that you have to accomplish an unbelievable amount of short-term goals before you can meet your medium-term goals and your long-term goals. The maintenance, the very maintenance of our lives, brushing our teeth, combing our hair, getting a haircut, putting on pitch spray, putting on cologne, putting on perfume, putting on our earrings, taking a crap, taking a pee, making our breakfast. Those things get in our way. I mean, I remember reading a book called Faster years and years and years ago. and how you and I are getting to the point where we don't even take the time anymore to do these things because we claim we don't have the time. For what? Self-care. Well, my God, if you don't have time for self-care, like the gentleman talked about, an ounce of preparation, say it again, brother, if you wouldn't mind.
An ounce of preparation is worth a pound of maintenance all day long.
It's just so true, and I've heard gentlemen say this like him and women say this like him, and I'm thinking to myself, God, bravo. Bravo. How many times? I mean, I can tell you, Sean, if you're still with me, I know I've been on a rant for a long time here, but I can tell you, brother, I kept preparing because I knew I was going to break through. I knew I was going to break through and find what I wanted. And that's the only way that Sean could have ever taken what I achieved, and then in moments, he added more value to it. So at the end of the day, you could benefit from it. Because that's what Sean and I are trying to do, right, Sean? Is help these people benefit from it. Right?
That's right.
Because what good are we if we're not here helping them benefit from something we've seen or done, been part of? You know, I had one of you reach out to me the other day and just rip the living shit out of me about the fact that I won't give you the terms of the loan. It's not your loan. It's not your loan. It's your client, but it's not your loan. Why do I have this habit? Why did I develop this habit? There's an evolutionary process to why we came up to the habit we use, and here's why. Because what you're going to do is you're going to open up the contract, you're going to look at it, and you're going to say, I wouldn't do this. Well, how dare you make the decision for someone else? It is the 17th of the month. This is a short month. This month sucks. Anyone know how many days are in this month? Anyone?
28.
We got 11 days until the end of the month. And if you know about your rent, your mortgage, your light bill, your lease, your insurance for your employees, I can tell you all right now, you love a 31-day month as a business owner. And you hate the 28-day month. Friday comes sooner. Payday comes sooner. The end of the month comes sooner. They're brutal. I can tell you right now, I've been in straight commission since the mid-'80s, and I can tell you right now, 28 days in a month are brutal on me as a business owner. They take a toll on me. Because I have systems. I have habits in place. And I start saying to myself at a certain date each month, which happens to be, by the way, the 15th of the month, 2 days ago, where are we at? How are we doing? I used to not do this till the 28th, 29th of the month. One day I'm probably going to wake up, and on the 1st of the month, I'm going to start, figuring out where we're at for next month. But on the 15th of the month, I start freaking out. I got over $25 million a month now in bills. $25 million a month now in bills. I can't slip on a banana peel. I can't slip on a banana peel. I got hotel bills. I own hotel chain. Within the Choice Hotel brand, I own my own hotels. I've got restaurants that I own. I've got land I own. I've got homes I own, 91 homes, 2 high-rises in Portland. I've got to make the bills. Car payments, insurance payments. I'm helping my oldest son with his daughter's education and his son's education. I can't let these people down. Responsibility weighs heavily on me. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Because at the end of the day, over and over and over again, I remind myself of my abilities. Of my abilities. I don't pay attention to you people who say to me, you didn't do that. It's not possible. You can't do. Are you shitting me? My capacity to dream blows your capacity away. But more importantly, my capacity to accomplish my goals makes yours pale in comparison. And I'm not here to be in a situation where we're slapping our peckers up on the side of the wall and measuring peckers here. But I could tell you all something right now. You don't just get this many bills and this level of gross revenue coming in overnight. What happens is I start wagging the tail like a dog. You start wagging, hey, I'm going to go into business. You open a checking account at the bank. You get an EIN number. You go into business. I wanted this when I started. I wanted this. And I was not someone who said to themselves, be careful what you wish for. I'd been here before. I missed it. I sold it in 2006, December, to Countrywide, and I retired. And I hated every moment of it. And as God would have it, as the universe would have it, or maybe myself, maybe I did this to myself, Julie divorced me 17 days later, served me with papers of alimony and child support for a little over $64,000 a month. And I said to her, I'm not paying this out of my retirement. I'm not paying this out of the money I've got in the bank and in savings and in all these investments. I'm going to go out and make a living somewhere and offset that. That's what I figured I would do, offset it. Maybe I'll only make $360,000 a year, $30,000 a month. But at least I'm not paying $64,000 a month out of my retirement. Because if you ran through 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013 like I did, and believe me, you were running, because the economy was going to shit in a handbasket and everything was falling apart. There wasn't a day where I wasn't going 100 miles an hour standing still trying to get things done, head everything off at the pass. But I remember one day realizing that what I had that was going to save me at the end of the day was my abilities. I had the endurance. I had endured. I had the potential. I had the power. I had the aptitude. I had the facility mentally. I had the capacity, the capabilities. I knew the potential was there. All I had to do was go at my own pace, not paying attention to GRP, not pay attention to Andrew Reiser over at Strategic Funding, not pay attention to Retail Capital, Ryan Rosette, not pay attention to Mick Jacobs over at On Deck, not pay attention to Barbara Johnson and Gary Johnson, who owned AdvanceMe, who founded the industry in the late 90s. No, I need to go at my own pace. I need to design my own system. So one day, if everything goes the way I think it would, which I thought it would if I lived long enough, you could say to yourself, wow, this is a good system. This is a great system, and I like being part of this system. I've compared it to other systems, and to be real honest with you, the systems just aren't there. I hear this all the time from people. That's what I pay attention to. What I'm going to do with you new people that are signing into class right now, believe it or not, go back to being at your pediatrician and pick up that magazine, and in there they've got the connect the dot pictures. And all you got to do is get a crayon or mom's ink pen or dad's ink pen or pencil, or your legal guardian's pencil or ink pen or a crayon sitting there or a felt pen, and all you got to do is connect the dots, and the next thing there's a giraffe. Next thing you know, there's a goat or a dog or a house or a mystic castle off in the hills. And you look at it and you say to yourself, could life be this way? Well, all I got to do is connect the dots. Sure, that's the way life is. You got to connect the dots, but they're your dots. They're your giraffe. They're your goat. They're your palace. You're the one developing this for yourself. The worst thing on the face of the planet that you can do today is spend time out there on these platforms telling everyone, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. No way you did that. No, liar. He's a liar. I'm going to go get evidence and show he's a liar. What are you doing? What, pray tell, could you possibly think for one moment that this is adding value to your life? I get these emails and I look at them and I think to myself, what is wrong with this? Well, I know what's wrong with this person. This person is unhappy. I mean, all you got to do is go to my homerowemotions.com, 6primaryemotions.com. Taken me over 50 years to develop this website. Put these words from my throat chakra and my stomach chakra on here for the benefit of you and I. And what does it say on the top? Home row emotions. It's not mental illness. It's an emotion. Anger is an emotion. It's not mental illness. Don't argue with me. Fear is an emotion. It's not mental illness. Don't argue with me. Sadness is not mental illness. It's an emotion. Now, if you stay in sadness too long, if you stay in fear too long, too consistently, if you stay in anger or disgust or surprise for too long, if you bask in it, like basking in the sun, then you're going to become the byproduct of fear, anger, sadness, disgust, and surprise. And that's what I found over the years is I was a happiness-seeking being at 17, at 18, at 19, at 20, at 21, at 22. I was the byproduct of a family that was not happiness-seeking beings. They stayed in their fear. They stayed in their anger. They stayed in their sadness. They stayed in their disgust. They stayed in a life that surprised them every day. They had completely given up on seeking happiness. They didn't even think it was available to them. Imagine living in a world where you didn't think that happiness was available to you. That the other 5 emotions were going to be controlling factors in the rest of your life. Fear, anger, sadness, disgust, or surprise. Look at your dad. Look at your mom. Look at your aunt. Look at your uncle. Look at your brother. Look at your sister. Look at your husband. Look at your wife. Look at your friends and family and understand they are driven by one of these 6 emotions. And you will find very few of them, and I mean very few, truly happy, grateful people. And that's why we're driven to them. We're driven to them. We want to be like them. But what do we do in the interim? Well, what we do in the interim is we drink. We masturbate. We use porn. We eat. We overeat. We use antidepressants. We shop. We use drugs. We smoke. Use anxiety medicine. We exercise. We over-exercise. We meditate. We over-meditate. We use yoga. We overuse yoga. Over and over again, you think about it, you say to yourself, man, look at all these things I use to get me through the day. One of you reached out to me the other day and said, I can't believe you talk this way. Why would you encourage people to drink? Why would you encourage people to use meth? Listen to me. Hold on a minute. I don't care what it is that gets you through the day. As long as you're not affecting other people, get through the day. because that's a win. And you better go over to a board somewhere, and you better put a check mark underneath the left side of that cross, that symbol on the blackboard or whiteboard. Draw that symbol of a cross. And on the left-hand side, underneath that vertical line, you put a check mark in and you say, I got through another day. That's a win. I don't give a damn what you tell me. A win is a win. Whether you win the game by 1 point or 1,000 points, a win is a win. And it's the little things that you've got to understand, that you've got to pay attention to if for some reason you feel like you're not winning the big picture in life. Hey, I'm proud of you for getting up. Hey, I'm proud of you for brushing your teeth. That's another win. Hey, I'm proud of you for taking a dump. That's a win. Hey, I'm proud of you for feeding the dog. I mean, there's times where I look at my wife, Jane, I think to myself, this is amazing to me. Just like my wife, Julie, how monumental you make this task of feeding the dog. These monumental tasks of feeding the cat. The monumental task of taking the car down and getting the oil changed. The monumental task of going out and getting the mail. Like what? Like there's a moat around your castle and it's full of alligators and you can't make it to the mailbox? Sure. That's who we are. That's how we're hardwired. Over and over and over again, as I reflect back on my life, my dad's dead. Every one of my family members gone. Other than my little brother, who's basically gone mentally. And I think back, I look at these people, and I think to myself over and over again how they let life get in the way. They let the smallest things get in the way. I had a guy that I was talking to in my neighborhood the other day, young man, look at me and he goes, well, I'm not working for $15 an hour. I go, what would make you happy? And he looked at me for a second. I go, what would make you happy, Brian? What hourly wage would make you happy? And he looked at me, and again, I said, you haven't defined what would make you happy, have you? You're just too busy bitching about what makes you unhappy, what you're not willing to do. He's like, you know, Mr. Martin, when I get around you each time, you talk to me different than my parents. Sure I do. I'm a dose of reality in a world where more often than not, people are not willing or able to talk about reality or the reality of the situation. And I said to him, what would make you happy? Because if you don't define what's going to make you happy, then how will you know when you get there to be happy? How will you know to rejoice? How will you know to feel a sense of accomplishment, to feel gratitude? You will develop an attitude for the rest of your life that it's not enough until you define what it is you want. More often than not, what people don't do as they're going through personal development is they don't realize how important it is just to get out of bed, just to brush their teeth, just to get breakfast ready. Because believe me, to do those things, to shower, shit, and shave and get prepared for the day, now it takes us, what, an hour, 30 minutes, 15 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour and a half? It's not an easy thing to do, to be part of the human experience oftentimes. But I've never met anybody in my life ever that I sat down with and genuinely said to me, after I'm done and I'm getting ready to leave the house, I look back on it and I put a check mark as a win for having gotten those things done. No, we overlook them. We overlook them. Because what? Because they didn't pay us a wage? Well, that has a lot to do with it. I didn't get paid. No one's standing there telling me great job. So you got to learn to tell yourself that. In a world where we're not taught to tell ourselves that. We're not taught about our self-talk. So many times I read these books, I'm listening to these books, I'm thinking to myself, Why aren't they teaching this in school? Why didn't they teach this in my home? And it became very, very, very magnetic to me. I was drawn to it like I was a piece of metal. And this magnet was pulling me. And I wanted more of it. Not more knowledge so much as it was more tactics, more abilities to be able to cope. Pretty soon what happened was my willingness expanded. My willingness to endure. My willingness to go through. There was a readiness, a preparedness, a disposition. A disposition. There's an old saying, where there's a will, there's a way. Willingness. My desires. All I ever wanted out of this life, period, was to be in a situation where the people around me were in harmony. I swear to God, to all of you, that's all I ever wanted out of this life, was to be in a situation where the people around me were in harmony. What's interesting to me about that responsibility as a human being, when you're someone that's like Johnny Appleseed and you want to spread seeds, sow seeds, what's interesting about it is how many people don't want you to spread seeds? How many people you meet along the way that tell you it can't be done even when you're doing it? Even when you're doing it. We had an East Coast person reach out on Friday to one of your national sales managers, and you had told him that this meeting starts at 5 a.m., 8 a.m. his time, and he's like, how come so early? I'm not even up yet. I mean, folks, not to brag by any means, but I don't recall the last time I was in bed at 8 a.m. Even when I was a drunk, I was like Denzel Washington in that movie Flight with John Goodman. I wake up in the morning, I just take some of the hair of the dog that bit me. Screw it, if I'd had too much Corona from the night before, then why not grab 3 or 4 Coronas? That's all it's going to take. It's going to be a little rough on me for a minute, but I can tell you right now, it's a hell of a lot better than going through the entire day without a hangover. And now I'm okay. I talk and I get emails from some of you. It's like, how could you talk this way? It's like you're encouraging people to drink. No, I'm encouraging people to live their lives. In a world where so often it's difficult to live our lives. I get so sick and tired of family and friends saying to their family, why are you drinking? Why are you using meth? Why are you using coke? Why are you looking at porn? It's like, hold on a minute. Don't you talk to me about your self-righteousness. Every one of you, including myself, have an addiction. We do. I'm telling you right now, you cannot hide it from me. In no time, I will figure out your sanctimonious BS, your smugness, your priggish, and I guarantee you I will find your addiction, and I will guarantee you I will find your roadblock, and that will be your roadblock. And you can tell me whatever you want, but you're using that as an escape. Why? Because it gives you happiness. Masturbation gives people happiness. Gambling gives people happiness. They've done the research. You know the endorphins are released. You know the dopamine is released. Marathons give people this release. Weightlifting gives these people this release. Hell, I got to be real honest with you. Comments about your looks, if you're someone who's hungry for those comments, provides that dopamine. I remember having a roommate, Mark Bergstrom, who was absolutely the most shallow human being I've ever met in my entire life. And all you had to do was say to Mark, wow, you look great today. And that would give Mark an injection, like, you know, a B12 injection. And he'd be fine for another hour or two. But then you'd see him peter out. So what did he do? How did he get around this? I'll tell you how he got around it. He slept with woman after woman after woman after woman after woman. I mean, this is back when we were roommates in 1984, 1985. And he's bragging about having slept with 2,000 women. How many is it now? 6,000, 10,000, 15,000? And you say to yourself, what kind of person does this? What kind of person? Well, shit, I know exactly what kind of person does this. So do you. This is how they get their cup full. This is how they get their award. Because you know what's interesting about meth? You know what's interesting about pornography? You know what's interesting about shopping or drinking? Is eventually it doesn't fulfill you anymore. And so what do they say to you and I? They say all the time, you know, well, you got to let Randy get to the bottom. My Uncle Scott got cancer at the same time I did. He'd been drinking real hard for a lot of years. And my ex-wife and her sister Tricia and her dad and mom, Chuck and Judy, would repeatedly say to me over and over and over again in his 20s and 30s and 40s, got to let him hit rock bottom. 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 That's what they talked to me about in AA when I started AA in my early 20s. When I went to CA meetings, even though I never did Cocaine Anonymous, I just wanted to see what's driving these people. What are they saying? How are they acting? How are they responding? What's driving them to do the things they do? And over and over again, what I found is that this no longer fulfilled them. They could no longer manage it. The last thing on the face of the planet that you want, mark my words, folks, is to hit rock bottom. Because we live in a society right now where you ain't getting back on your feet. I don't care what you tell me. I've met so few people on the face of the planet that have hit rock bottom that got back on their feet that I can only count it on one or two hands. Rock bottom is not a good place to be. In fact, you're not born into this lifetime at rock bottom. Your credit scores are higher when you're born on the face of the planet than they are once you hit rock bottom. And your habits are better when you're born into this world than when you hit rock bottom. Huh? Is that why you could be reborn? Sure. Anytime, any place, you could be reborn. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, you're no longer what? Chemically imbalanced. So don't tell me they're chemically imbalanced. I've seen people who fall in love and immediately are no longer chemically imbalanced. I've seen people make changes that are miraculous according to other people. And the funny part about it is all I say to myself is, well, they found where they're supposed to be. They're now connected. They're in the flow. It's not a negative loss each day. A net gain has transpired. And they feel what? A sense of win, a sense of accomplishment. But fundamentally, folks, once in a while, you need to be able to reach out. And if you are not where you want to be, then it's time you ask for help. Get some help. I would not be where I was and where I am now and was along the way had it not been for Lloyd Bud Rollhope in Milwaukee Lutheran Church. I saw him for over 40 years before he died recently. I don't know where I'd be without Robert Mile before he died as a psychiatrist, and now James Farley. And so often I'm surrounded by people that are unwilling to go in and talk to a doctor. Well, really what you're doing, folks, is you're just talking to yourself, and that's where the real problem lies, is our self-talk. Creates self-walk that creates drama for ourselves. We are the problem, we are the solution of the problem, and therein lies the problem. I am the problem, I am the solution of the problem, and therein lies the problem. Yeah, I totally believe in letting go and letting God. But I've told you a number of times on this call on Monday morning that I've never sat down on my ass and had things go my way. I just haven't. And I know that in a lot of ways I'm taking it out of context or content when I say let go and let God. But I have found that there is times where it is like giving birth. And if you had a great OBGYN or a mediocre OBGYN or an intermediate OBGYN, what he or she, they would say to you is, stop for a moment, quit pushing. Quit pushing. And that's what you've got to do in life every once in a while. Even though you say to yourself, I got to get this done. I feel this over my head. It's looming. This yearning, this long. It's like, hold on a minute. Slow down. Now might be the time to take a break. Maybe you've been pushing too hard. Because I can tell you all right now, there's times where I look at people and it's like, hey, that feverish pace that you've got, A, you can't keep it up, and B, the double doors to the kingdom of success are not going to open for you carrying on like that. You need to slow down and gain your composure. Get ready, like the gentleman says. An ounce of preparedness. Get prepared. Get a yellow pad. Get off your phone. Don't use your phone as a notepad. Get a yellow pad or a white pad. Get a pencil or a pen and write it down. Get it out. What I find when I write my list in the morning, no, I write my list the day before for tomorrow. Yesterday for today. I find when I write this list that what I learned over the years is that it ain't going to be put on this list if it can't get done today. I won't do it. So many years I had a list that didn't get done. And then what I found when I was working the list was I did the easy things and the hard things carried over till tomorrow and the next day and the next day, and I'd write them down again. Those were the things that were bothering me the most because they were the hardest to accomplish. So then one day it dawned on me, it's like, whoa, hold on a minute. What the hell are you doing? You got to take this list and you've got to divide it up, this piece of paper, and you've got to work on your short-term things that you can get accomplished today. You've got to put a list together for your medium-term things, and you've got to put a list together for your long-term things, goals. So what I found was I would go over to my long-term goals and just work on them for 5 to 10 minutes that day, knowing I was not going to reach that goal today, but that I was chinking away at that goal. Same with medium-term goals. Chink away at that goal. Maybe your goal is a house, and that's your long-term goal. And you came across $15 today, and you didn't have $15. I mean, what are we taught? We're taught we got to pay ourselves first. All right, then take $1.50. Take 10% and put it away. And you say to me, well, I'm broke. I need that. No, you don't. You need that money in the bank so that you can no longer say to yourself ever again, I'm broke. So that when you look down the road 6 months from now, you now have $300. A year from now, you now have $1,000. 5 years from now, you now have $10,000. You can't live in a world where you constantly spend everything you've got or everything you get. You've got to pay yourself first. And this is the thing I find with these business owners over and over and over again. Caleb, are you on the phone? Caleb, have you come into the call? Caleb? God, I wish you were on the phone, Caleb. We got a borrower that came in to our business a week ago, last week, about Wednesday or Thursday. Met with us Thursday. It was Thursday. And the guy is doing over $600,000 a month in one of his companies, over $200,000 a month in another one of his companies, and over $150,000 a month in another one of his companies. And he's there to borrow money from us. This kid can't be much more than about 35 years old. No way he's 40. And I'm looking at his finances this weekend with Caleb. Saturday, we're in the office. But I really don't want to do it, quite frankly, because when I do it, what happens to me is I get their life on me. It's like a film that gets on me. Believe me, folks, they don't come into an office. They don't call you. They don't email you because everything's okay. You may think they're okay, but they're not okay. They're not calling you because everything's okay. They should call you. They should start by saying, everything's not okay. You should actually say into your brain immediately, they're emailing me because everything's not okay. They're calling me because everything's not okay. Now that we got that out of the way, let's understand one another. They're going to take what you offer. Do you think that when I met Brett Poisson at the Hyman Center, and I'd have been told by Stephen Nelson that I had cancer, that I said to Brett Poisson, yeah, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to go through radiation and chemo. I'm going to take another alternative. I hear if I eat organic red apples, so-and-so said I should chew garlic. XYZ said I should eat more kale. This video says I've got to do stem cells. That's the key. I mean, I got email after email after email after email, phone call after phone call, text after text. And what I finally did is I put out a letter to every single solitary person we had on our team, which was over 170,000 people. And I said, do not email me or call me again about cancer unless you've had my exact cancer, HPV cancer, and lived through it yourself. And there was not a single person who reached out, not one. Prior to that, I'd had over 100,000 emails. Opinions. People's opinion. You need to go to Mexico. You don't know what you're doing. You need to get to Taiwan. You got this new medicine over there. It's like, I don't have time for that. I'm being told if I don't take action with this, I'll be dead in 6 months to a year. So I got to go in on faith, make a commitment. In a world, by the way, where I was surrounded by 41 other people, and I could just see how timid people were, how scared people were. We now have 23 of them that have died of the 41 that went in with me. And I can tell you right now, I can go back and look at each and every one of them and tell you that almost every one of those people had doubts. Me, my hypochondriac ways had long since disappeared. Yes, I was a hypochondriac. Yes, I was claustrophobic. Yes, I was riddled in fear as a foundation. Yes, I've been riddled and formed by anger and disgust. But long, long, long ago, through self-help books, I found positive thinking, positive affirmations, and a positive way to live my life. So when people would reach out to me and say, when I got cancer, oh, you need to start thinking positive now. You need to start listening to positive affirmations now. It's like, hey, it's a little late for that. It's a little late for that, folks. If you ain't got it going in, you ain't going to have it when you get there. Sorry, Charlie. If you're not prepared for the battle, you ain't going to win the battle. So if you're worried about cancer, then you better get your head on straight. And you better understand, you better be prepared for the word, the big C, because it's not fun. Those of you that had it, I mean, someone out there give me an amen. I need one amen.
Amen,
Somebody
brother.
give me an amen. Because it is a living hell. I can tell you right now, you are never going to be more lonely on the face of the planet. It's not even as lonely as you were when you were inside your mommy's womb. Not your daddy's womb, because we know now, we've exposed it, that men can't have babies. No such thing as a butt baby, folks. We've moved past that now, got up off all fours, and we're educated. And we realize women make babies. And you were lonely inside your mommy's womb. I was lonely inside my mommy's womb. In fact, I can tell you right now, looking back on it now that I know my mom, the way I know my mom all these years, I can tell you that from a delivery system standpoint, I was delivered into fear. I was delivered into anger, and I was delivered into disgust. I spent 8.5 months inside a belly, a womb of a woman who lived in fear. She was riddled in fear her entire life, riddled in anger, driven by anger and disgust. Now imagine being a baby inside that womb. How can you not be the byproduct of that delivery system? Shit, no wonder I spent so many years trying to get that film off of me. Sure, the doctors wiped it off of me and the nurses wiped it off of me after I was born, that afterbirth, and cut the placenta, the cord. But at the end of the day, I was still connected to her. I remember 1991. I won an award. And then I won another award in 1999. Second fastest growing company in Oregon. My mom was living in Alaska at the time, and she called me to chew me out. I bet you feel like you're a big man now. That's how the call started. Imagine doing that to your child. Imagine doing that to a friend or a family member, your husband, your wife. Shit, imagine doing it to your dog or your cat. I bet you feel like a big man now. Not, hey, congratulations. And I hung up on her. I got a phone call back. I was at the office. Stacy's like, your mom's on line 1. I get on the phone. I'm like, you ever talk to me like that again? I'll never talk to you again in this lifetime. You ever treat me like that again? I'll never talk to you in this lifetime. In fact, you don't understand something. I am so far past your toxicity that if you ever treat or talk to me in this manner again, while you're around me or from afar on the phone, I'll never talk to you again. And you can take your witch's brew, and you can brew it when we get off the phone. And if I feel that energy, 1 ounce of that energy coming at me telepathically, I will end my relationship with you. It will be over. And then she did what she always does. She needled under, like a dog that had been afraid or was afraid it was going to get beaten because it had been beaten before. And she did what she does so well when she's caught. I can't begin to tell you how many times I caught my mom treating me like shit for her benefit, trying to take me down a notch. What kind of world is that? where the very person that nurtured you, is supposed to provide nutrients for you, leaves you malnourished. No, what I found was she was trying to build a system where I would be forever in need of her. I remember the first time that my wife did this with our own children, and I stepped in. I remember the second time and the third time and the fourth time. Sure, I don't remember them, but I can tell you right now, every single solitary time I stepped in when I got the chance, like, don't you dare do that again. You leave Grant alone. You leave Travis alone. On my honor, I will die right here. We will go through a divorce. You want to see a war? Then you treat our children that way. Don't you ever speak to our children that way again. They will end up like you, and they will end up like me, and that is not what you want. You hate your mother. You hate your father. You never talk to them, ever. And the only words that you have to say about them are bad. And yet, interestingly enough, you're doing it now. It's called the sins of the father. You automatically pass it on from 4 to 6 generations without even thinking it through. And I asked her over and over, go to therapy with me and work on this, but no. No. Now she's in therapy all these years later. Why? Because Grant won't put up with her crap, and Travis won't put up with her crap. And now what we're finally starting to find in our family is harmony. And the boys have admiration. And the boys are inspired by their mother that she's now taking action. And the interesting thing about it is every time that they commend her on this, every time they compliment her on this, it makes her feel better about herself, because she grew up in a world like I did where she didn't have a mirror looking back at her, a mom and a dad, an aunt, an uncle, a grandma, a grandpa. That was a reflection of positivity, where the self-worth was just automatically instilled. You know, there are people like that. Maybe some of you on the phone that didn't have to go down that path or be part of that toxic environment. I've had people over the years say to me when I'm going one-on-one with them in therapy, or a husband and wife combination when I'm working with them from a counseling standpoint with my degree, and have them say to me, you know, God, I wish I had it as easy as so-and-so. Or I wish I had it as easy as so-and-so. Or so-and-so makes it look so easy. And it's like, yeah, don't kid yourself. Don't kid yourself. You're right where you want to be. You're right where you're supposed to be. You signed up for this. Each and every one of you signed up for this. You did. You came on this platform and you signed up for this. You wanted to be part of this. You said to yourself, I could do this. I could do this. This I can do. Well, I can tell you this right now. You need to do something about that every day. It doesn't matter if it's baby steps. Think about that movie. What About Bob? Think back about that movie. What About Bob? With Richard Dreyfuss and Bill Murray. One of the best movies of all time. And what book did Richard Dreyfuss's character write as a psychiatrist? Baby Steps. I've told you all before, I was Bill Murray. I remember calling Bob Mile at night. I remember calling Robert Mile when he was on vacation, because I suffered from separation anxiety. Seemed like the further I got away, the more I felt the separation anxiety. In fact, I would explain it to him that I felt like when I got away from my mom and dad, there was a rubber band that pulled me back. And now what I've done with you, Dr. Miles, I've passed it on to you, and when I get away from you, I feel like there's a rubber band that pulls me back. And he goes, I want to give you an explanation on that visual. Are you ready? I said, sure. I'm dying for information, something that can help me. And he said, have you ever seen a rubber band? that's been stretched so far that when you let go of it, it goes back to what was once its normal shape. It's now a little bit bigger. I'm like, yeah? He goes, that's what's happening to you, Brett. But you're just going to have to be patient, because what you're doing is you're living a life where you're going 2 steps forward and 1 step back. And you're paying attention to the 1 step back, not the 2 steps forward. Like, holy shit. I mean, I remember going out of there in my La Bamba. I had a 1967 Chrysler 300 convertible. All electric, the first year it ever came out. We called it the Dead Kennedy Mobile. God-awful red interior. I put the convertible down. I'm driving down the road, and I'm high as a kite because I found another little ingredient that was missing that added nutrition to me emotionally, spiritually, physiologically. I didn't even need food. I didn't even need water. I didn't even need shelter. I didn't even need sleep. Endorphins and dopamine were at an all-time high. And I felt like I'd found the answers. And inevitably, somewhere during the week, like usual, it would all go to shit. But then I would go back and I'd plug in again with Bob Mile. Or I'd go plug in again with Lloyd Bud Roholt. Or a book that Mr. Brown had given me before he passed away. Or a book someone else would recommend. And now the Dewey Decimal System was starting to take way. And the word anxiety not only had 1 or 2 books available, but now it had modern books available. And self-help became a thing. And now I started to get into this, and it was like, damn, dude. I was on the cutting edge from an exploration standpoint of something that had been going on for thousands and thousands of years, where we were rubbing 2 sticks together to make fire. Now I can get this education like turning on a burner. I don't have to go through all this hell. Well, no, folks, I got to tell you something right now. You can't sidestep education. I don't give a damn what quote you read today. If you're 17, 19, 25, 30, 35, and you haven't done your work, all that's going to do is provide inspiration and motivation for a moment in time. But it's not going to create nourishment. You're going to have to endure. You're going to have to endure. You're going to have to endure going into these business owners. You're going to have to endure calling them on the phone. You're going to have to endure figuring out how to make the black envelope work for you, how to make Craigslist work for you, how to make going through parking lots work for you, how to make going to a Chamber of Commerce meeting work for you. I can't make it work for you. You got to make it work for yourself. You got to prepare. And believe me, when you do, it'll be so much more rewarding for you. So much more rewarding for you. Maybe you only call on one business today. We use the word only. We throw it around like it's, I don't know, derogatory oftentimes, or minimalistic at best. As little as, no longer, ago than, hardly. But come on, man. Like my psychiatrist said, it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. You never go forward if you've leaped. You never go backwards if you've leaped forward. You're never going to be the same again. You're expanding yourself. Like that rubber band that's been overstretched. And now it's bigger than it was. It's a beautiful thing. I started to realize how wonderful the human experience was. Over the weekend, we were at dinner with a couple in this neighborhood. This man had just inherited $6.4 million in real estate, 75 years old. Him and his wife are living like paupers. He worked for a property management group. He did a very good job for this old man based out of California. And at the end of the day, this gentleman gave him 14 homes 2 years ago. Bob made the comment to me, I never, ever once in my entire life that I can remember after I got out of high school thought for one moment that I wouldn't be a multi-millionaire. Now here I was, 75 years old, a multi-millionaire. And he said, and I nonchalantly checked it off my list, like a bucket list. He said, I always knew I'd be a multi-millionaire. I didn't know when. He goes, you know the mistake I made, Brett? You told me about it about 2.5, 3 years ago. I said, what was that? And he goes, I never wrote down when. You told me that you drove around for over 10 years with a license plate that read 44 NOUT. You told me about Tony Robbins, and I thought you were a goofball, and I've always hated Tony Robbins. But he said, I could tell you right now that the only reason I wasn't a multimillionaire when I inherited all that money was because I'd never written out when. You see, folks, you need to put down a deadline. You've got to put down a deadline. If you don't have a deadline, if you don't have a time limit, if you don't have a finish date, if you don't have a target date, if you don't have a cutoff point, sorry, Charlie, procrastination will win the day. You mark my words. Procrastination will win the day. Procrastination will rule your life. If you don't have a deadline, you will delay. If you don't have a limit, a time limit, you will defer what you're up to. You'll stall. You will. If you don't have a cutoff point set for yourself, make no mistake about it, you'll use delaying tactics. And then you'll justify it. Well, I had to go to a funeral today. Well, I wasn't feeling good today. I had a headache. Well, you know, it's raining out. I mean, excuses are like assholes. Everyone has them. We've all heard the saying. It's just some of you don't use the word asshole because you think it's something, oh, my God, I'm mortified by that word. I mean, that word doesn't even mean anything in Hubangi. They wouldn't know what I was saying in Africa or China. So what's the big deal? Why are we so caught up in words? Words don't matter. What matters really is feelings. And it makes you feel something based off the way you were brought up because you're the byproduct of something. Is there a lot of us on the phone that are prudes? Absolutely. Make no mistake about it. A lot of us on the phone that are meek? Sure. Shy? Oh, God, yeah. Christians? Catholics? Buddhists? Jews? Black, white, Japanese, Chinese, Latino? The list goes on and on. There's every walk of life on this phone right now. Listening to me, do whatever it is, pontificate, whatever, fornicate, whatever you want to call this. I can tell you all right now that in the event that you don't have a deadline today for yourself when it comes to marketing, you're doing yourself an injustice. What does it matter if they say no? What does it matter if you look like a fool? Can rejection keep us from doing something? Refusal, turning down, being turned down? Can it keep us from doing something in the future? Sure. I mean, I don't know if some of you realize this or not, but there are actually countries that don't have the word rejection in their vocabulary. Think about that for a moment. The powers that be, when they went from grunting and clicking and whistling, actually said to one another, we will not build the word rejection into our vocabulary. Imagine if you were able to remove that word from your vocabulary. Imagine if you were like a mallard duck or a widgeon or a pintail duck or a Canadian goose, a snow goose. and you were out in the rain. And imagine if you had that CDC, that Cul de Canard hair, and the water just ran off your back like a duck. Think about what that would be like. At the end of the day, if you were like Keanu Reeves in The Matrix, where all of a sudden you and I saw him on the rooftop and he dodged those bullets and he got it. And we were like, oh, whoa. They had built the story over and over and over again for this moment in time, and now it was happening. I mean, those of you that don't believe that I've accomplished what I've accomplished in this industry, type in JUAN Monegro. MONEGRO. Yellowstone Capital. And read the article. Third one down, fourth one down that says Yellowstone Capital funds over $100 million. Read about Juan Monegro at 19 years old in this interview, having closed 2,351 loans in a 1-year period. 10%. 10% of what I was closing on average. What made me different than him? Well, he was in a call center. That's the only marketing technique he used. He didn't have the black envelope. He didn't have Craigslist. He didn't have 87 branches of KeyBank, Wells Fargo, and U.S. Bank feeding him loans every day that had been turned down. You see, folks, I was getting 250, 300, 350 loans a day that were funding a day from banks out of 600, 700, 800 applications. I had a route set up. I had networked. I had sown the seeds. I was reaping the harvest. The mustard seed had become a tree, a gigantic tree. I didn't have to work. They were doing the work for me. I'd done the work initially. I had set up a route, and they were feeding me. And they were glad to feed me. Elated to feed me. Why? Because they didn't want to tell their business owners no. And that's what they do all day. Every single solitary day. They tell people no. That's what they do all day, is tell people no. No, you can't have a loan. But the problem is they don't tell them this till 90 days later. Go to my website right now, subprimebusinessfunding.com. Click on the About Us tab. Go to the history drop down. And what did I write back in 2010? SBF is here for you. Subprime Business Funding is here for you. Banks are not funding business loans. It's the way that the article goes. And then what does it say? It seems like doomsday to our local and national staff. All we hear is reports day to day about the nation's small business owners being turned down by their banks for a business loan. How many times can a business owner be told no before they put a gun to their business's head? Banks' customers are sick and tired of being told no. 100 ways to say no creatively, I write as the next topic, and I say, imagine what life would be like if you had to tell your small business owners, loan applicants, no all day long, like a business banking loan officer does. Banks have become great at telling customers no. We are great at telling you that you are approved. Now all you have to do is go into a bank and say to this lady, don't go to the manager. Say to this gentleman, don't go to the manager and ask permission. Just go talk to somebody in a cubicle or a glass office. Knock on the door. Say, can I talk to someone about business loans? Sure, sit down. Great. Hey, I want to ask you a question. What's it like for you, John, when you have to tell these business owners no? Now sit back and shut up and let John puke on you. What's it like for you, Betty, to have to tell these customers no when it comes to business loans? Now sit back and shut up and let them puke on you. And then when you're all done, you just look her in the eye and you say, Betty, I'm going to give you a flyer. Next time you have to tell someone no, you can say to them, I've got some bad news, but I've got some good news. The bad news is Wells Fargo is not going to be able to do your loan. They've turned you down. But the good news is I've got somebody that may be able to help you. It's such an easy sale, folks. It's such an easy sale. Caleb and I, Tracy and I are going to go out this week in Medford. And we're going to go to banks. And visually, I'm getting myself ready for this. Because one of the things that I do before I go into the bank, talk about preparation, is I make sure that when I go into the bank with somebody that I'm going in with, that they have the right clothing on. Not showing too much belly, not showing too much boob, not showing too much butt, not too tight of pants in the front so he's showing his junk. That's the new thing anymore, for whatever reason. These guys got to wear these suits that are so tight they can't even get them buttoned. It's the most obtrusive thing I've ever seen in my entire life. But, hey, it's the new trend, right? High water pants, show your socks. You know, then they got to lather themselves in so much cologne that the cologne gets there before they do, or they got to lather themselves in so much perfume that the perfume gets there before they do. So these are things I talk to you about before we go into the bank. If you've got open-toed shoes and you've got fungus on your toes, no, ain't going to happen. You're going to put on nylons, or you're putting on a closed-toed shoe. They're going to focus on that. They're going to focus on that. And I can tell you right now, you don't want to give them excuses or ingredients as why not to do business with you, because what you have to do, you have to understand is you're going to want them to say to you in their actions more than their words, yeah, I'd be willing to introduce you to people. I'll have them call you. They're not going to give you their application, so get that out of your head. They're not going to give you their Social Security number. Get that out of your head, for Christ's sake. They're not going to give you the file. I don't know what it is with people emailing me saying, they're not going to give me the Social Security. Well, no shit. Good God, are you kidding me? Got to think for a moment. They can't give you the Social Security number. They can't give you their date of birth. They can't give you the bank's file on them. They're going to call Rhonda at Rhonda's Salon and say, Rhonda, I've got some bad news. KeyBank's not going to be able to do your loan. I'm truly sorry. Now, Rhonda's going to beat the crap out of her, because Rhonda's been in the pipeline for 58 days. And I'm going to tell you something right now. You ain't ever been on the receiving end of an ass whipping like you have when you call someone with bad news after 93 days, 68 days, 29 days, 54 days. So she takes the abuse. He takes the abuse from the business owner. And then she says, but by the way, I've got somebody that might be able to help you. All of a sudden, their ears perk up. You do? I do. These people specialize in the loans that have been turned down by the banks. In fact, I've got his flyer right here. Give Brett a call. Here's his number. Well, I'd rather not give Brett a call. Can you call him for me and introduce us? Sure. So next thing you know, you get a phone call. Now listen, I don't know how many of you I called last week, but I can tell you it's well over 100. Maybe closer to 200. And not one of you answered your phone. Not one of you answered. Pick up your phone. Pick up your phone. Pick up your phone. Now, if you're in a situation where you got the black envelope going or ever advertising going and you want to wait to hear what they're saying, then so be it. So be it. Don't answer the phone because you're going to want to hear what they've got to say. But then, my God, call them right back. And then come up with an excuse and just say, hey, by the way, I'm so sorry I was on the other line. Or, hey, I'm so sorry, I was getting my dog in the house. I just got done walking my dog. Come up with an excuse of some sort. Make yourself look good. Don't make yourself look like you're screening calls. I mean, one of you last week actually said to me, oh, hey, Brett, I didn't know it was you. It's like, got to be kidding me. That's the excuse you used? Come up with an excuse. Hey, I'm so sorry. I was in the middle of tying my shoe when you called. What can I do for you? Or I got your message. It sounds like we should be able to help you. Give it a chance today. Go out to a bank today. Because once you land her, once you land him, once you perform for them, once you fund a loan for them, they're going to introduce you to other people in the business location right there. Or when they get in the month-end meetings as a group, they're going to introduce you to other loan officers. That's how it happened for me. Pretty soon I was working with 2 loan officers, then I was working with 3, then I was working with 4, then I was working with 5. Somewhere in there I got a call. My ex-wife talks to me and she's like, Nick wants to talk to you. I'm like, what for? Nick's the national sales manager for Key Bank. I'm like, what for? I'm thinking to myself, I'm in trouble. Why would he be calling me? She goes, I don't know. So he gave me his number. I gave him a call. He goes, we're going to be in Seattle in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whenever it was. We'd like you to come up. We'd like you to talk to our loan officers. You're doing something in that Pacific Northwest that is skewing our numbers. What is it you're doing? How are you able to get these loans done when we're not able to get them done? And I explained to him what I was doing. He's like, you got to come up. You got to help us out. Now, here's the interesting thing. Listen, pay attention here, folks. This is the best part of the morning right here. When I got up to the meeting, I was nervous. I was a nervous wreck. A, because it was a long ways from the parking lot. And I suffer from separation anxiety. And my car is like a womb for me. Very comforting. Now, B, when I get inside the building, I've got to go up the stairs or I've got to go up the elevator. And I have claustrophobia. Not only that, but oftentimes when I get into these buildings and get far away from my car or my home, I suffer from acute anxiety and a panic disorder. It's like a combination, like a blender. So there I am, freaking out, as usual, in 2007. Public speaking was not an issue for me. It's just a question of whether or not I was going to lose my shit on stage and turn into a panic-stricken freak and have to run down the stairs and run to my car for safety. So I quietly reached into my right pocket where I had 2 clonazepam, 0.5 milligram, and I took them. Took a little sip of water. I had the table. I was prepared. A little table next to me. My own table I bring with me when I put on presentation. I can't rely on them. I got to be prepared. Chewed the pills. And then I did what people don't do. They don't do this. I told everybody in the room I suffer from anxiety attacks. I'm in the middle of a panic attack right now, and I just took a couple clonazepam, and you're going to have to bear with me because I'm a nervous wreck. And people actually kind of gave me this body language and eyesight language like, I know what you're talking about. And I just said, show of hands, have any of you ever been there? A couple of hands go up. I go, come on, be honest with one another. Show of hands. Have any of you ever been there? Hands start shooting in the air. Even the management team. Even Nick himself. Or Nate himself. It's Nick or Nate. I think it was Nate. Anyway, long story short, I start talking, and next thing you know, I get a lady in the audience that makes a comment, and I said, what did you just say? She goes, well, you know how it is. You don't want to give the business owner bad news. I go, no. Hold on. You said you delay it. And she kind of looked down a little bit. I go, don't look down, look at me. Look at me. I've done this little exercise with my children growing up 10,000 times. I said, look me in the eye and tell me what you mean. And she's not telling me, but she's looking over at the management team. I look over at the management team. I'm like, you guys got to go, or you got to give them permission to tell me the truth today in front of everyone. You either leave or you let them tell the truth. And this Nick or Nate's like, yeah, go ahead. And I go, no, you need to be more convincing. Today is off the record. It's got to be off the record. And the president steps in. He's like, it's off the record, all of you. We didn't pay this guy to come up here to have you all be in a situation where we watch you lie to him and lie to us. We've got to figure out where the issues are at. I go, show of hands. How many of you do not call the business owner back when you get the bad news? 100% of the hands went in the air. I said, okay, it's Thursday morning. Thursday afternoon, you get the bad news that the business loan has been turned down and it's been 58 days, 60 days, 100 days, whatever I said. Show of hands, how many of you don't call back that Thursday? 100% of the hands went in the air. It's Friday, and now, in my mind, you don't want to ruin the business owner's day, and you don't want to ruin your weekend. You don't call the business owner, do you? Show of hands. How many of you refused to call the business owner that day? 100% of the hands went in the air. I said, now let's go to Monday. You don't want to start your Monday off with bad news. Not one of you called the business owner on Monday. I know, because I used to own a mortgage company, and I coached this right here. Every class that I taught in week 1. And I said, 100% of you do not call back on Monday, do you? And every hand went in the air. Show of hands. And I said, so that leaves about Tuesday or Wednesday. Now let's go back for a moment, because let's understand one another. This bad news that you've been carrying around has affected your relationship with your husband or wife or partner, your relationship with your dog for the last 5 days, 6 days, 4 days. It's affected your relationship with your children. It's affected your relationship with yourself. Right now, I've got the management team has taken a seat. They're in the crowd. They're no longer sitting off to the side. They're saying to themselves, I know what you're talking about. I've been there myself. I look right over. It's Nate. I know it's Nate. And I look at Nate and I said, I can tell right now you've been there, haven't you? He goes, Brett, it's the only reason why I'm a manager and they're not. It's because I got brave enough one day to figure out how to deliver the bad news. I said, what happened? He goes, to be real honest with you, I got sick and tired of carrying it around with me because it's exactly what you said. It would start to build. I go, not only that, but now you get news about 2 or 3 other businesses too, right? Or 10 or 15 other businesses. He goes, absolutely. And I go, now you go home to that beautiful wife of yours or partner of yours or children or dog, and now you're preoccupied, retroactively entrenched in thought. Are you not? He goes, for sure. I go, this is what all you ladies and gentlemen are going to do from now on. Go back to your office and understand that you can't wait to call the business owner with the bad news. Because on the heels of it, you've got some good news. So it's that old saying, I've got some good news and I've got some bad news. Which one do you want to hear first? You know, and inevitably people are like, well, I'd like to hear the bad news. Well, the bad news was we can't do your loan. But the good news is I've got someone that may be able to. And if you want, I can give you their phone number. Or if you want, we can call them together. My world exploded. It was everything I wished for and then some. It's always better for me. It's no different than me being on this call 3 hours and 2 minutes ago when I got on this call. 3 hours, 2 minutes, and 50 seconds ago, and I prayed beforehand, God, give me wisdom. God, give me the strength to endure the fear that I'm going to go through getting started on this call. God, fill me with knowledge. God, fill me with the ability and the willingness to get on this call and try to add value to these people's lives, add value to my own life. Over and over and over again since 3 o'clock this morning as I plugged in to these positive influences on Instagram and listened to these men and women, young, medium, and old, with these sayings. Went back to the sayings I have that I carry around in my wallet so I could say to myself when I got on this call afterwards, that felt good. I left it on the field, A, and more importantly, B, somebody in the crowd heard me. And that's what happened to these people in the crowd that day up in Seattle. And pretty soon the phone started to ring and the emails started to come in. Customers were calling me. Bank loan officers were calling me. One after another, after another, after another, after another, after another. My credit lines were not large enough at J.P. Morgan. My credit lines were not large enough at Deutsche Bank. I had to go get Cal. I had to pay him $500,000 a year and bonuses, and I put him on a plane. And he leads my money buyers now because I couldn't stay out ahead. We were running out of money. We were long ran out of my money, and we were running out of credit. 200 loans a month, 300 loans a month, 400 loans a month, 500 loans a month. I go in and I meet a guy named Andrew Reiser. He owns Strategic Funding. They're called Capitus with a K. Look it up. K-A-P, Capitus. Look him up. Andrew Reiser is the CEO. Met with him out in New York. Asked him where he was getting his credit. Shit, he didn't have the credit I had. Of no use to me whatsoever. At all. I remember thinking to myself, you've got to expand, man. You've got to expand or you're going to die. So I hired a second money buyer. Sean, are you still with me or have you left?
I'm here.
It's no different than YouTube, dude. We'd run out of money. It wasn't working for me, and I'd get frustrated. So I'd start talking to a guy like you, right? How many times have you and I been talking? How many times have you gone back and forth with me, emails showing me knowledge over and over again? Have you not this last couple of weeks?
I definitely try to do that, yes.
Oh, you've succeeded. You've succeeded, have you not?
Well, thank
taking
you.
Taking me into meetings, have you not? Taken me into meetings where we met with this lady? We've got a meeting. We're going to meet with Focus this week and talk to them and another telemarketing group. That's what you and I have been doing. That's exactly what I was doing back then. But I was just doing it with money. Because where there's a will, there's a way. That's how I see it, Sean. Where there's a will, there's a way. You and I will come up with this. The answer that helps the company, that helps the people within the company. And that's what happened to me. I kept telling Tal, I kept telling Mike, it's all right, we'll find it. Pretty soon we find a Japanese investor who manages a hedge fund. And they're looking to invest a $100 million credit facility. And we got $75 million of that credit facility. Took 3 weeks of him sticking his nose in our books. The entire time I had to slow my production down. We couldn't fund loans. But then I went back into production. Now I've got enough credit. Back into production, out of production, back into production, out of production, back into production, out of production. Go read that article I wrote. It's on our website, and I wrote it for all of you so you can benefit from it on how I became the GOAT in this industry. And what does it say in there when you read it? I mean, flat out, what it says is, what I did was I became great at managing the inconsistencies in my life. Because my life never was a straight line. There was nothing straight line about it. It was up and down and around and over. In fact, the best way to describe it is you and I get in a sailboat with the intentions of sailing from the shore to an island out in the middle of the lake. And what do you do in a sailboat? You tack in the wind. And if you watch a sailboat, they rarely go straight. They have to use the wind. And that's how I describe my success. My answer is explained best by saying I became the GOAT in this industry by being inconsistently consistent. I'm different that way. I'm not the person who sits down and telemarkets for 8 to 10 hours. Nor am I someone, or was I someone, who went door to door to business owners for 8 to 10 hours a day. In fact, getting me to do anything in a conveyor belt manner or fashion for 8 to 10 hours a day drives me insane. I need variety. I need inconsistency. I need it mixed up. Or what I coined phrase-wise years ago to describe myself of sales and marketing as a need to flourish in an ever-changing, inconsistently consistent environment, where the only thing consistent about it is its inconsistent nature. What caused me to be inconsistent? Well, think about it for a moment. The same thing that causes you to be inconsistent. Starbucks, the dentist, your doctor, your broken down car, a lack of money. You bought a new car that day, so now you're busy thinking about your new car for the next 3 days, getting insurance, this type of thing. So now you're not in production. Your kids, your wife get in the way, your husbands, your partners get in the way, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, rent gets in the way, mortgages get in the way, lease payments get in the way, cancer gets in the way, ailments get in the way, car payments get in the way, sick family members, your parents get in the way, dogs, cats get in the way, birds get in the way, snakes get in the way, travel gets in the way, vacation gets in the way, gambling gets in the way, porn gets in the way, grocery shopping gets in the way, boating gets in the way, your club, going to the club, I got to go to the club. I go to the club every day. I got to work out. Tanning gets in the way. You get my point. Your life and all the ingredients or elements of your day-to-day life get in your way. Somehow you have to teach yourself to live within the inconsistencies and still manage your marketing and advertising, or no marketing and advertising gets done that day. Therefore, you soon end up with a void, financially speaking, since you didn't do marketing last week, or the week before, or the week before that. And the more time and days that slip by without you marketing or advertising, the larger the financial void becomes. It has an if this, then that result on our lives, financially speaking. So what did I get great at? Making sure to market every day, no matter what took place. And during the time I was marketing, whether it was only 15 minutes or 3 hours for that matter, I made sure I was fully present and fully committed and deliberate to that piece of marketing without any outside distractions. And trust me, I got damn good at target marketing and staying the course during the time in which I allotted for my marketing and advertising. So often when I get around people, that's the biggest problem they have is I talk to them, I'm like, okay, so where do you market from? Well, I guess we could do it here. I'm like, what do you mean we guess we could do it here? Pick a spot. This is hallowed ground. This is hallowed ground. Make no mistake about it, you've got to be involved in a circumstance or situation where you consider this hallowed ground. You got to devote yourself to it. You got to dedicate yourself to it. You got to be in a situation where you say to your husband, your wife, your dog, your cat, your partner, your children, get out of my life. Goodbye. No mas. Sayonara. I'm now doing this right now. And maybe you're only going to do it for 5 minutes, but I can tell you right now, if you're that deliberate in nature, the stars are going to align for you. The universe will open up for you. The powers that be will allow you to be successful. I guarantee it. You can't not be successful. It's not possible. You can't bring yourself into that realm where you're omnipresent, not thinking about what's going on that day, that week, that month, or in your past life up until now. And you can't not be successful if you're not thinking about tomorrow or tonight or next week or next month or next year or your retirement years. If you're in the moment, I can remember being in a football huddle, looking at Weaver, looking at Angelos, looking at Baranaga, and saying to them, what are you doing? We're down by 2. We've got 5 minutes left on the clock. Shut up. I don't want to hear one word in this huddle about how we're not going to win. We got these guys right where we want them. They think they've got us. Right now is when we got to dig in. That's why I was the captain of the football team. That's why I was the captain of the baseball team as a catcher. We'd get in the dugout and Kerry Merritt would throw his mitt. Scott Stewart would throw the bat and helmet. He always did. I'd walk over there and I'm like, you do that again, I'm going to put my boot up your ass. The cleat's going to go right up your butt. And Herman would be standing there laughing as a coach. Like, you're damn right. You're not going to be in a situation where you're like that. Because what it's going to do, it's going to rub off on everyone else. It's going to rub off on everyone else. See, that's what you're doing, folks, when you hit me with these emails. You want yourself to rub off on me. You want to blanket me in your disgust. You want to blanket me in your anger. You want to blanket me in your fear. Then I got no time for you. I'm not going to get down on your level. I mean, Joseph Boyd and Sean, I told you what happened with me and Tim Rowe. He's a liar. He's a scammer. And I kicked him off the platform. Goodbye. You can't have that cancer out there. You can't have that cancer out there on the field. You can't have that cancer on the field. It doesn't matter to me who I get rid of if they're that bad. And you've got to get them out of your lives. I remember one time I was in the middle of a game my junior year. Kerry Merritt was a senior. He threw the ball over my head for about the 5th time. Guy had the strongest arm in high school. No one had an arm like Kerry. Every scout wanted him in every major college. And he had scouts there. And I called timeout. And he brushed me off like, get back in there, get back in there. And Terry was a tough guy. I was a tough guy too. And I got the gear and I went out there, took my helmet off, took my hat off. I looked at him and I said, listen to me for a second right now. You need to understand something. I've been around you since we were little kids. And I've seen what's going to happen next. you're going to get pulled out of this game. And you're going to go over to the side of that dugout. You're going to kick things. You're going to throw things. You're going to turn over the bottle, the Gatorade, container full of water. And you're going to hiss and moan. And Hermo's going to make you run laps after the game. I go, do you really want that? Is that really what you want? And he's kind of looking at me like, what the hell, dude? What are you talking about? I go, listen to me for a second. You're one of the best baseball pitchers I've ever caught. Bar none. I mean, he just was. Guy had a curveball that would start breaking at your head, and the next thing you know, it would be in my mitt. Hell, half the time, I was afraid I wasn't going to catch the ball. That's how great the curveball was. It would just fall off the table. Took everything I had in the tank and then some to be able to catch his curveball. His fastball scared me, but I had to bear down 99, 100-mile-an-hour fastballs because, every once in a while that ball would foul tip and hit me in the forearm, and they didn't have protection on the forearm. I was bruised. My fingers were broke. You should see my hands. My fingers are bent up. Fingertips are tattered. Fingernails that don't grow right. Over and over and over again, I'd be down in the dirt picking up his balls and saving them so that I didn't have pass balls. And I'm out there and I'm getting in his head. I called over Scott Stewart, and Scott comes over and said, hey, he's a shortstop. Hey, Scott, tell me about Kerry. What do you think about Kerry? You think Kerry's a good pitcher? He goes, I do, Brett. I think he's one of the best pitchers I've ever seen, one of the best in the league. I look over at Shane Shelton. I'm like, hey, Shane, come here. He's at second base. I go, come here for a moment. By then the coach is coming out. What's going on? I go, let me have my team. I got it. That's why you made me the captain. Next thing I know, I watched Kerry strike out 9 batters in a row over the course of the next 2.5 innings. I mean, folks, all it takes is somebody to have confidence in you, or you to have confidence in yourself. That's all it takes. And the next thing you know, your mindset is what causes you to be in a situation where life is different for you. I wanted 500 loans a month when I was doing 400. I wanted 600 loans a month when I was doing 500. I wanted 700 loans a month when I was doing 600. That's why I got to those numbers. I never wanted to stop producing. I always told myself I would continue to produce because I quit producing in the mortgage industry. But then one day I woke up and I had too much time I was spending doing what I am now. Meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting. One of you sent me 11 emails this morning. And my staff member reached out to me and said, he's going to take in over 20,000 emails today alone. Imagine if you took that times 10 or 11. That's over 200,000 emails. Next time, maybe what you should do is just put one email together as opposed to 11. Do you think this is a chat room? I mean, folks, this isn't a chat room. This is a legitimate company in a legitimate industry, and I can tell you right now, there are people on the West Coast and people on the East Coast that are kicking ass in this industry. If you don't believe me, look online. Coming up this next month in Florida, we're going to have a rah-rah there. We're going to have a rah-rah there, the whole industry, at a convention hall. You can look it up. It's an MCA convention in Florida. And I can tell you, when you get there, you say to yourself, whoa, I had no idea. Uh-huh. And they came in on their own jets, or they came in on jets that they rented to get them there. They came in first class. And the boys and the girls there are in the big leagues. These are the ones doing 200 loans a year, 300 loans a year, 400 loans a year, 500 loans a year, 600 loans a year, 700 loans a year, 800 loans a year. And you listen to them. Mike Tyson is going to be the guest speaker. One of the keynote guest speaker. There's going to be other guest speakers. And I quietly go to these and I sit in the back and I don't let anyone know I'm there from the industry. No one knows who I am. And the neat thing about it is No one really watches my videos from the industry. It's just new people like yourselves that watch my videos. People in the industry, they hate my guts. And I'll tell you why they hate my guts. Most of them are jealous of me. Or they can't stand my business model. I mean, you look at my website this weekend, and I put a little ship on there. 9 of you reached out and told me how stupid that ship was. Look how it comes across there. Just something funky on the website. Go to the website, Mom and Pop Business Funding. Watch the evolutionary process of that website. That website is corny for a reason. The flyers are corny for a reason. The logo is corny for a reason. And yet you reach out and you hit me with an email and you say, this looks so unprofessional. Move on. Move on. You don't have to stay on the platform. This is a brand. And the customers, 99% of them, love the brand. They talk about the brand on the funding call. They don't talk about you first. They talk about the brand. God, I love how corny the logo was. God, I loved how corny the font was. Or that was the damnedest website I've ever seen. Or those flyers are the ugliest thing I've ever seen. It's like, yeah, but you're doing business with us, aren't you? Well, I guess you're right. That's exactly what my funding department says. Yeah, but you're doing business with us, aren't you? Yeah, you're right. I am. You know why? And then we have our staff tell them, because we interrupted your normal state of being, on down to including the red font that delivers, the email that gave you the approval and the contract. Everything we do is abnormal in a world full of what? Normality. If there is such a thing, like the gentleman and I said at the beginning of this call over 3 hours ago, if there is such a thing. I can tell you all something right now. This is easy to do. But it's every bit as easy not to do it. That is the conundrum. Think about it. It's easy to do, and it's easy not to do. And that is the problem, the conundrum, the difficulty, the quandary, the dilemma, the puzzle, the enigma. I've been called an enigma before. That's the mystery. I mean, it's so funny to me how people try and figure the mystery out before they start. So many times I have people say to me, like Patrick reaching out this morning saying to me, now this is how we do the windshield wipers? This is like the third time that he's asked me, this is how we do the windshield wipers? And I gave him the same answer. Yes. With a little encouragement. Because what he's doing is the same thing I did. Same way my son Grant, I'll never forget it. Grant, watching Grant, learning from Grant, my youngest son, the one that his division sent you all the flyers. When he was a little boy, he'd go down to Clackamas High School. We'd go alone because he didn't want to do it in front of his friends. When he was at DOS with his skateboard, he wanted to learn how to do a 6-stair or a 7-stair or a 10-stair and come flying off of that and land it. So we'd go to the bleachers, and he'd work in the bleachers. And he'd stand there, and I'd watch him. He'd sit down, and I'd watch him. He'd contemplate. There'd be times we'd be down there an hour and a half, 2 hours on a Saturday morning, a Thursday evening. There's times he wouldn't even do it. I'd get him in the car and still take him for ice cream. Great job. I know you're getting closer. You're going to get this, son. Eventually you're going to get this. I'll never forget, Wayne Dykstra and Grant and I were down there. Wayne's really good at skateboarding. Wayne's a year older than Grant. And he comes off this 10-stair, and he does a 360. And the next thing I know, Grant follows, and it's the first time ever he's done a 10-stair. Not a 360, but he just sticks a normal 10-stair. And him and I and Wayne are just high-fiving, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Back up he goes and he hits it again. Back up he goes, he hits it again. Back up it goes again, and this time he falls. Well, it's not real fun because it's asphalt, and they didn't do a good job of pouring it, and it grates him up real good. And then he just looks over at me with this look in his eyes that say to me, I'm getting right back on the horse, buddy. I know how to do this. And he goes right back up and he sticks it again. It wasn't a year and a half later that he signed a contract with Burton for snowboarding. And he signed a contract with Supreme and Nike for skating. Go on to graduate high school making over $3 million he made. Snowboarding and skateboarding. So many times I've reminded him of this that he's probably sick of it. Recently, he was in Okinawa because we have a division in Japan. And he's on a high-speed train, and he texts me, and he said, I'm crying. I live a life unlike any of my friends. And then he listed it. A, I'm free to do whatever I want, whenever I want. B, I have someone I can always talk to that I know, no matter what, is going to be my biggest cheerleader, and it's you, Dad. And C, my stomach is full, and I bought it with my own money. And in parentheses, he said, I feel nourished in a world full of people that I'm surrounded with that are malnourished. And he didn't mean food, because this is how him and I talked. He meant that he felt whole. Now, this is a young man, by the way, that fought anxiety attacks like I did and went through some very hard times. And over again, I watched Julie suffer, wanting to help her. And over again, I told her over and over again, just keep encouraging him to keep going, encouraging him to live another day, encouraging him to fight another fight, encouraging him to get in the fight again. Just keep encouraging him. And since she was never brought up like that, these were words that were foreign to her, statements that were foreign to her. So she wasn't very convincing at it. But over time, my ex-wife got it. And she's got it now. What a wonderful lady she turned out to be. And her husband's a wonderful guy. John and I have worked numerous times, countless times, on self-esteem and other things, ego, narcissism, vanity. And I look at my life and I think to myself, I'm getting older. I mean, I told Vadim, I don't know if you're on the phone here right now. You are. How are you, Vadim? Good morning.
I'm doing great. Good afternoon.
Vadim is from the Ukraine. Think about that for a moment. He's from Ukraine, and he's on the phone right now, and he's on every call I ever have. I told Vadim recently that I had to put off telemarketing for a little while. I'm being told by the doctors that this lymphedema I have in my throat is not just lymphedema, but that my vocal cords are going out. I mean, imagine that. What happens if I lose my voice altogether? For the last week and a half since I've got this diagnosis, I think about it, and I say to myself, well, shit, you'll just have to hold these meetings without your voice. Or maybe you don't hold these meetings anymore. Maybe it is a situation where for the rest of your life you'll be a writer, which is what you always wanted, and you haven't done it full time. Maybe it's God's way or your way or the universe's way of getting you to your goal. In order to get there, you have to lose your voice so you can no longer talk. And the only way you can actually talk is you're going to have to write. What if we went blind? What if I got a car wreck in March 5th, 1982, and I had compound fractures, 19 on the left hand side of my body and 5 on the right? And then it happened. And I had to endure that pain and go through that rehabilitation for 2.5 to 3 years. What if I got cancer? What if you got cancer? What if you had a child like my friend, Barbara Bauckham, and the child got ran over by a dump truck, a garbage truck on the trike, and you watched it happen? Can you dig in and dare to live the rest of your life knowing that? I mean, think of how many things you've been through. Think of what you've accomplished in this life. Think of what you've endured to get here. And then recognize how simple it is to go to a Chamber of Commerce meeting, how simple it is to go door to door to a business, how simple it is to telemarket by comparison. It's nothing. It's lint on your black coat. That's all it is. Brush the lint off and go for it. Every once in one of you came on this platform with the mindset that you think or thought you could do this. And I can tell you right now, every one of you can. The biggest thing that you need to understand about these business owners is be brief. Don't overcook the soup. Shut the burner off and serve it. My name is Brett Martin. I'm with a company called Mom and Pop Business Funding. The company I represent specializes in unsecured working capital for carpet stores. We go up to $1 million. We close these loans in 1 to 2 days, oftentimes the same day as the application. And I simply wanted to leave you a flyer, and that way, in the event you ever needed any working capital in the future, you've got my contact information on the bottom. You see, you don't have to say to them, and I wanted to ask you, do you want to do a loan with me or not? That's a closed-ended question. That's where you're going to experience the rejection. Whereas the other method that I suggested, where you close by saying, and I simply wanted to give you this flyer, and that way you've got my contact information in the event you ever need any unsecured working capital for your carpet store. They're not going to say no. They're going to say, thanks for stopping by. You're very welcome, David. It was nice meeting you. Have a wonderful day. And you walk out. That's a win. Now, David's going to take and put that on his desk or on his cork board. Or he's going to walk out back, light up a Marlboro cigarette, click your phone number, call you, and say, hey, I didn't want to talk to you in there in the lobby in front of my staff or in front of customers or both, but I am interested in a loan. I mean, the feeling that comes over you after that is over is unimaginable. It is. It's unimaginable. And then what you do is you just build on it from there. You know, I don't know how many times, Vadim, you've heard it where someone says, you know, they got a call on a black envelope or they got results on Craigslist. And I don't know where those people are. I always laugh. I think to myself, I'm like, where is this person? Why isn't this person doing 25 telemarketing calls that they've landed, or 50 or 75 or 100 Craigslist that they've landed? Where did they go? Where did they go? Very few people get to the top. And I know what it is. It has to do with the fact that these inconsistencies in our lives get in our way. They get in our way. Our dad dies, our mom dies, our wife dies, our husband dies, our partner dies, our dog dies. The dog eats your homework. I mean, excuses are like assholes. Everyone has them, you know. But what did you say, Joseph Boyd, the other day? You wrote in there? Or was that you, Milton or Marcus, that wrote about the dash? I think it was Milton or Marcus that wrote about the dash and brought up the dash about the poem. Or was it you, Harry Potter, who brought up the dash? You know, folks, listen to me. That's one of the things I can tell you that may have left the biggest impact on me on the face of the planet that I've been part of with all of you here on this human experience is that poem called The Dash. And then I met Linda Ellis, and I broke down in tears. I was like, that's me. I'm trying to live a big dash. I came down here this time with the intentions of having a big dash, understanding that there's no doubt in my past lives that I didn't have the dash I wanted, and I was not about to live this lifetime not having lived my dash. What dash am I talking about? The day I was born, the year I was born, and the day I die and the year I die. That dash in between. If you haven't read that poem, you can't go another day without reading that poem. In fact, I'm going to read you that poem, and then let's get out of here. The Dash by Linda Ellis. I read of a man who stood to speak at the funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on the tombstone from the beginning to the end. He noted that first came the date of birth and spoke of the following date with tears. But he said what mattered most of all was the dash between those years. For that dash represents all the time they spent alive on earth, and now only those who love them know what that little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love and how we spend our dash. So think about this long and hard, and are there things you'd like to change? For you never know how much time is left that can still be rearranged. Think about this line again, paragraph. So think about this long and hard. Are there things you would like to change? For you never know how much time is left that can still be rearranged. To be less quick to anger and show appreciation more and love the people in our lives like we've never loved before. If we treat each other with respect and more often wear a smile, remembering that this special dash might only last a little while. So when your eulogy is being read with your friends' actions to refresh, would you be proud of the things they say about how you lived your dash? May you all have a wonderful dash today. Your day has started. It will end this evening. Give them hell. I will see you on the other side out there in the battlefield. I can tell you right now, I will be covered in blood and mud and tears, and I may be wounded, and you may need to help me, but make no mistake about it, I will not give up. I refuse to give up in a world where I'm surrounded by people who give up and give in. I was born into a family that gave up and give in. And I want to send love and kindness in all of your direction. We'll see you back here tomorrow for day 2, you new people. We'll see you back here for tomorrow, day 2. I'll be talking about marketing and advertising. You will need a computer or a pad for day 2 tomorrow, everybody that is brand new. You will need a computer or a pad to listen in live. Those of you that are on the call, that have been on the call for over 3 hours with me, thanks for joining me today. Thanks for enduring this call. God bless you and keep you. Love and kindness in your direction, and we'll see you on the other side next week for the Monday Morning Eye Opener. And those of you that are brand new, we'll see you tomorrow for training on day 2. Make sure you have a computer or a pad because you're going to have to see the screen. Bye-bye now, everyone. Have a great day. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, brother.
Love you.
Thank you.
Love
You too, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Love you guys too. Have a great day. Give them hell. Take no prisoners out there. It's a war out there. Give them hell, everyone. Thanks for joining us today.
Brett, that was awesome, Brett.
You got it, Brett. Kill it.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. Have a great day, Kevin.
Go Team Freedom.
Have a wonderful day. Amen. Freedom, brother. Freedom. William Wallace. Freedom. God bless him. And they killed him, and that was it. But then what did they do with his head and his body? And what did the Scottish do? Worn out and tired and starving. That's right. What did Mel Gibson say? They fought like warrior poets. Warrior poets. God, what a great line. What an amazing ending to a movie. Thanks for joining us, all of you. Have a wonderful day. Go get them.
Thanks,
Be good people. You bet. Thank you. Be good people. America needs more good people right now more than ever. Bye-bye now, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye. Go get them. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for joining us today. Bye-bye now. Got to get you off the call or I can't get this recording out. Bye-bye now, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for joining us today. Go, go, go. Bye, Chris. Have a wonderful day, sir. Bye, Matt. Have a great day. Bye-bye. Have a wonderful day, each of you. Go get them.